The moment Ethan Cole saw Victoria Hale standing in his kitchen after 10 years of silence, teaching his daughter how to flip pancakes, he knew his carefully rebuilt life was about to shatter. The billionaire CEO he'd walked away from. The woman who still owned pieces of his heart he'd never reclaimed. One impulsive kiss later, and the walls he'd built came crashing down. But second chances don't come with guarantees, and neither of them were the same people anymore. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey reaches. The coffee maker sputtered its last breath at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, which should have been Ethan Cole's first warning that the universe had plans he wasn't ready for. He stood in his cramped kitchen in worn joggers and an old college t-shirt, staring at the machine like it had personally betrayed him. The apartment smelled like burnt toast. His fault for getting distracted by Lily's spelling homework spread across the counter. Outside the window, Seattle was waking up in shades of gray, rain beginning its familiar drumbeat against the glass. "Daddy, the toaster's smoking again." Ethan spun around to find his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, standing in the doorway with her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. Her dark hair stuck up at odd angles, and she wore mismatched pajamas, one leg striped, the other polka-dotted. She looked at him with those serious brown eyes that sometimes made her seem older than she was. "I see that, sweetheart." He yanked the plug from the wall, waving a dish towel at the thin stream of smoke. "Guess we're having cereal this morning." "Again?" "Again." Lily sighed with the weight of someone who'd endured far greater hardships than another breakfast of Cheerios. She climbed onto one of the mismatched chairs at their small table, tucking her rabbit beside her. Emma's mom makes her French toast every morning. Emma's mom doesn't work 2 jobs and have a toaster that's actively trying to burn the building down. "Can we get a new one?" "Sure, right after I win the lottery." It was their routine, this comfortable exchange of mild complaints and gentle sarcasm. Ethan had built his entire life around routines after Maya died. Routines kept things manageable, predictable, safe. Wake up at 6:30, get Lily ready for school, drop her off by 8, work his shift at the construction site until 3, pick her up from after-school care, dinner, homework, bath, bedtime stories. Repeat. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the life he'd imagined at 22, fresh out of college with big dreams and bigger ambitions, but it was theirs, and it was enough. Or at least, that's what he told himself on the mornings when the silence felt too heavy. He was pouring milk over Lily's cereal when he heard it, a key turning in the front door lock. Ethan froze. His apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that barely passed inspection. There were exactly 3 people with keys: him, Lily, and Mrs. Chen from across the hall, who watered their plants when they visited Maya's parents in Spokane twice a year. Mrs. Chen was 76 and knocked 4 times before entering. This person didn't knock. The door swung open, and Ethan's first instinct was to push Lily behind him, his hand already reaching for the phone on the counter. But then a woman's voice cut through his panic, bright, familiar, impossible. "I swear to God, Ethan, if you haven't fixed that lock yet, I'm calling a locksmith myself. This neighborhood—" Victoria Hale stepped into his apartment like she'd never left, like 10 years hadn't passed, like she hadn't built an empire on another continent while he'd been here, raising a daughter alone and trying not to think about the life he'd chosen instead of her. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw him. The grocery bags in her hands, expensive reusable ones from some organic market he'd never heard of, slipped an inch before she caught them. Her eyes went wide, that startling green he used to dream about, and for a moment neither of them moved. Ethan felt like he'd been punched in the chest. She looked different, older, sharper, like someone had taken the soft-edged girl he remembered and carved her into something more defined. Her dark hair was shorter now, cut to her shoulders in a style that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She wore black pants that looked tailored, a cream-colored blouse, and a watch that caught the light with quiet, devastating expense. But her face, God, her face was the same. The slight asymmetry of her smile, the freckle just above her left eyebrow, the way her nose crinkled when she was surprised. "Ethan." His name came out barely above a whisper. "Victoria." His voice sounded strangled. Lily poked her head around his hip. "Who's that?" The question broke whatever spell had frozen them in place. Victoria blinked, seemed to physically shake herself, and that's when Ethan saw it. The subtle shift in her expression, the walls going up, the CEO mask sliding into place. Victoria set the bags down on the small table by the door. I'm sorry, I thought Sarah told me she'd cleared this with... She stopped, closed her eyes briefly. I'm in the wrong apartment. Sarah? Ethan felt like he was trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Sarah Chen, she's selling her place. I'm buying it. She said I could come by this week to measure for furniture. She gave me her key, and I just assumed... Victoria looked around the apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. Her gaze landed on Lily's backpack by the door, the pile of mail on the side table, Ethan's work boots kicked off near the couch. Understanding dawned on her face at the same time it hit Ethan. You're buying Mrs. Chen's apartment, he said slowly. You live across the hall from Sarah Chen. They stared at each other. She didn't mention she had a neighbor, Victoria said. She didn't mention she was selling. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Jesus Christ. Language, Lily chirped, still clutching her rabbit. Victoria's attention snapped to his daughter, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, curiosity. Something else Ethan couldn't name. She crouched down, putting herself at Lily's eye level with the kind of natural grace that suggested she actually knew how to talk to kids. You're absolutely right, Victoria said seriously. I apologize for the bad language. I'm Victoria. Lily studied her with the suspicious thoroughness of a 7-year-old encountering a stranger. I'm Lily. That's Mr. Hopsworth. She held up the rabbit. It's very nice to meet you both. Victoria glanced up at Ethan, and there was something in her eyes that made his stomach flip. I really am sorry for barging in. Sarah said Tuesday morning, apartment 3B, and I just... This is 3A, Ethan said. I see that now. An awkward silence stretched between them, filled only by the rain and the distant sound of traffic. Ethan was acutely aware of his appearance. Unshaven, wearing clothes he'd slept in, standing in a kitchen that smelled like burnt toast and failure. Meanwhile, Victoria looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread on successful women under 40. Well, Victoria straightened, brushing invisible dust from her pants. I should go. Let you get back to your morning. Again, I'm sorry for the intrusion. She moved toward the door, and Ethan felt something lurch in his chest. 10 years. 10 years since that fight in the rain outside her dorm building. 10 years since she'd gotten on a plane to London for business school, and he'd stayed behind because his sister needed him. Because family came first, because he'd been 22 and terrified of the life she was offering. 10 years, and now she was here, buying the apartment across the hall, and he was just going to let her walk away again. Victoria. She stopped, her hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. Does Sarah know it's you? That you're the buyer? Why would that matter? Because Sarah Chen had known them both back then. Because Sarah had been the one who'd found Ethan sitting on the stairs outside his old apartment at 2 a.m, 3 weeks after Victoria left, unable to sleep and unable to stop wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. It doesn't, Ethan lied. When are you planning to move in? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Victoria's shoulders were tense beneath that expensive blouse. But I'm traveling for work, so I might not be around much anyway. Of course she was. Victoria Hale didn't do anything halfway. If she was buying an apartment in Seattle, it was probably just one of several properties scattered across whatever cities her business empire touched. Right. Well, welcome to the building, I guess. But now she did turn around, and the look on her face was complicated. Sad and angry, and something else entirely. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend this is normal. Pretend we're just neighbors who've never met. Lily had gone very quiet, her eyes darting between them like she was watching a tennis match. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. What do you want me to say, Victoria? That it's great to see you, that I'm thrilled my daughter's new neighbor is my ex-girlfriend who I haven't spoken to in a decade? Girlfriend. Lily repeated, testing out the word. Daddy had a friend who was a girl, Ethan said quickly. A long time ago. I'm standing right here, Victoria said. Yeah, and 10 minutes ago I didn't know you existed in my orbit anymore, so forgive me if I'm not handling this with perfect grace. Her eyes flashed. Your orbit? That's rich, considering you're the one who... Who what? Ethan took a step forward. Who chose to stay when my sister was dying? Who couldn't just drop everything and follow you to London? I never asked you to drop everything. I asked you to believe in us enough to try. And I asked you to wait, to give me time. Time, Victoria laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You wanted me to put my entire future on hold while you played hero to a family that never appreciated you anyway. That stung, mostly because it was true. His parents hadn't appreciated the year he'd taken off to help with Maya. His brother certainly hadn't stepped up. But that didn't matter. Family was family. She was dying, Victoria. I know. The fight went out of her voice, and she looked tired suddenly. I know she was, Ethan, and I'm sorry I wasn't more understanding. I'm sorry I made it an ultimatum. I'm sorry about all of it. Lily tugged on Ethan's shirt. Daddy, your face is red. He took a breath, forcing his shoulders to relax. I'm okay, sweetheart. Victoria was looking at Lily now, really looking at her, and Ethan could see her doing the math. Lily was 7. Maya had been sick 10 years ago. The timeline didn't make sense, and he could see Victoria trying to figure out what she'd missed. I should go, Victoria said quietly. I shouldn't have walked in unannounced. That was presumptuous. The key thing was an honest mistake. Right. Honest mistake. She picked up her bags and headed for the door, but then paused. For what it's worth, Ethan, you look good. Fatherhood suits you. Before he could respond, she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her with a finality that felt wrong. Ethan stood frozen in his kitchen, the coffee maker still broken, the toast still burnt, his daughter still looking at him with those too perceptive eyes. Was she your girlfriend? Lily asked. Yeah, kiddo, a long time ago. Do you still love her? The question hit him like a freight train. Why would you ask that? Lily shrugged. You looked at her the way Prince Philip looks at Princess Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. I did not. Did too. Eat your cereal. It's soggy now. Ethan sighed and dumped the bowl in the sink. Get dressed. We're stopping at McDonald's on the way to school. Really? Really? As Lily raced off to her room, Ethan braced his hands on the counter and let his head drop forward. His heart was still racing, his thoughts a tangled mess. Victoria Hale. Here. In Seattle. Buying the apartment across the hall. He was so screwed. The day dragged like someone had added extra hours to it out of spite. At the construction site, Ethan dropped a stack of lumber on his foot. Not hard enough to break anything, but enough to make him limp and earn concerned looks from his crew. During lunch, he ate his sandwich without tasting it, staring at his phone and trying not to think about the woman now living 20 feet from his front door. His boss, Mike, a gruff 50-year-old with permanent sawdust in his beard, eventually sat down across from him. You planning to share what's eating you, or should I just guess? Nothing's eating me. Right. That's why you've been measuring the same beam wrong all morning. Ethan set down his sandwich. Just distracted. Buy. Stuff. Mike snorted. Helpful. You know, Cole, you're one of my best guys, but you've had your head somewhere else lately. If there's a problem, there's no problem. I'm fine. Uh-huh. Mike didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. Well, get your head back on straight before someone gets hurt. We've got deadlines. Ethan promised he would, then spent the rest of the afternoon overcompensating by working twice as hard as necessary until his shoulders ached and his hands were raw. By the time he picked up Lily from after-school care, he was exhausted. She chattered about her day, something about a substitute teacher and a science project on butterflies, and Ethan made the appropriate responses, but his mind kept drifting. What were the chances? Out of all the cities, all the neighborhoods, all the buildings in Seattle, Victoria had chosen this one. Either the universe had a sick sense of humor, or he'd done something in a past life that karma was now gleefully punishing him for. They were climbing the stairs to their apartment. The elevator had been broken for 3 weeks, when Lily suddenly gasped, Daddy, look! Ethan followed her pointing finger and felt his stomach drop. Victoria was standing outside apartment 3B, struggling with a box that looked way too heavy for one person. She'd changed out of the fancy clothes into jeans and a simple black sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. There were at least 6 more boxes stacked against the wall behind her. She's moving in already? Ethan muttered. Before he could stop her, Lily had dropped her backpack and bounded over. Do you need help? Victoria looked up, surprise crossing her face when she saw them. Oh. Hi, Lily. Hi, we can help, right, Daddy? Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to grab his daughter, unlock their door, and disappear inside where it was safe and Victoria free. But Lily was looking at him with such hopeful enthusiasm, and Victoria was trying to lift a box that clearly said "Fragile Books" in marker on the side, and he wasn't enough of an asshole to let her struggle. "Yeah," he heard himself say. "We can help." Victoria's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw something vulnerable there. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. "You don't have to." "Too late. Lily's already committed us." He set down his lunch cooler and work bag. "Besides, you're going to throw out your back trying to carry that yourself. I'm stronger than I look." "I don't doubt it, but books are heavy, and that's at least 40 pounds. She glanced at the box, then back at him, and some of her CEO armor slipped. 53, actually. "Of course you weighed it." "I weigh everything." There was something in the way she said it, something that suggested she wasn't just talking about boxes. But Ethan didn't push. Instead, he picked up the book box with a grunt. "Where do you want this?" "Living room, left of the fireplace." He carried it inside, and the first thing that struck him was how empty her apartment was. The layout was identical to his, same narrow hallway, same cramped living room, same outdated kitchen. But while his place was cluttered with 7 years of accumulated kid stuff, Victoria's was essentially bare. A couch still wrapped in plastic, a coffee table, nothing on the walls. The boxes stacked everywhere were the only sign someone actually planned to live here. "You travel light," he said, setting the box down where she'd indicated. "Most of my things are in storage. I'm not sure how long I'll be in Seattle." Something about that statement bothered him, but he didn't have time to analyze it. Lily had already dragged in a smaller box labeled Kitchen Misk and was looking around with wide eyes. "Your apartment is so empty," she announced with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Lily," Ethan warned, "it's okay." Victoria smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "She's right. I just closed on this place last week. Haven't had time to really move in." "Why'd you buy it if you're not staying?" Lily asked. Victoria crouched down again, and Ethan noticed she did that a lot, made herself smaller to talk to Lily. He wondered if she'd learned that in some boardroom somewhere, or if it was just natural instinct. "That's a good question," Victoria said. "I guess I'm hoping Seattle might become more permanent, but my job takes me all over the world, so it's hard to know." "What's your job?" "I run a company that helps other companies with their technology." "Like computers?" "Exactly like computers." Lily considered this. "My friend Emma's dad fixes computers." "Do you fix computers?" "Not exactly. I help companies decide which computers to buy and how to use them better." "That sounds boring." "Lily!" Ethan felt his face heat. But Victoria laughed, a real laugh this time, surprised and genuine. "You know what? Sometimes it is boring, but sometimes it's exciting, like solving a really complicated puzzle." "I like puzzles," Lily said thoughtfully. "We're doing a butterfly puzzle at school. Those are the best kind." They fell into an easy rhythm after that. Ethan and Victoria carried the heavier boxes, while Lily ferried smaller items, narrating her efforts with the kind of running commentary only a 7-year-old could maintain. Victoria was patient with her, answering questions and making conversation in a way that felt natural, not forced. Ethan tried not to think about how well they worked together, moving around each other in the small space like they'd done this before. Tried not to notice how Victoria's face softened when Lily asked if she wanted to see her butterfly drawing, or how his daughter seemed completely comfortable with this stranger who was anything but. By the time they'd moved the last box, it was past 6 and Lily was starting to drag. "Okay, kiddo, time to head home," Ethan said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But I want to help Victoria unpack. I'm sure Victoria has plenty to do without us getting in the way." Victoria was standing in the middle of her half-empty living room, surrounded by boxes, and she looked lost. Not CEO lost, but genuinely uncertain, like she wasn't sure what to do now that the help had stopped. "Actually," she said slowly, "I was about to order pizza. If you guys haven't had dinner yet, you're welcome to join me, as a thank you for the help." Lily's eyes lit up. "Can we, Daddy? Please?" Ethan knew he should say no. Should create boundaries, maintain distance, protect himself and his daughter from the chaos that Victoria's presence represented. But Lily was looking at him with those puppy dog eyes, and Victoria was looking at him like she was half afraid he'd refuse. and he was apparently incapable of making good decisions where either of them was concerned. "Sure," he heard himself say. "Pizza sounds good." Victoria's smile was worth the inevitable heartache he was signing up for. She ordered from some upscale pizzeria Ethan had never heard of. Organic ingredients, artisanal crust, the kind of place that charged $25 for a margarita and made you feel like you were eating art. While they waited, Lily took it upon herself to give Victoria a tour of her apartment, which was hilarious since Lily had been inside for exactly 30 minutes. "And this is the kitchen," Lily announced, gesturing dramatically. "It's small, but it has a window." "Very nice," Victoria said seriously. "And this will be the living room, but right now it's the box room." An important distinction. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching them. Victoria had put her hair up in a messy bun, and there was dust on her jeans from the boxes. She looked different like this, younger, softer, more like the girl he remembered from college. The girl who used to steal his hoodies and fall asleep during movie marathons and make terrible jokes that only he found funny. "What's that look for?" Victoria asked, catching him staring. "Nothing, just weird seeing you here. Weird bad or weird neutral. Haven't decided yet." She studied him for a moment, and he could see her wanting to say something, but then Lily was tugging on her hand, dragging her toward the bedroom to discuss wall colors, and the moment passed. The pizza arrived 45 minutes later, late enough that Lily had started to get cranky, which Victoria handled by letting her build a fort out of empty boxes in the living room. They ended up eating on the floor since Victoria didn't have a dining table yet, using one of the boxes as a makeshift surface. "This is so good," Lily mumbled through a mouthful of cheese. "Don't talk with your mouth full," Ethan said automatically. "But it's really good." Victoria grinned. "I'm glad you like it. This place has been my guilty pleasure whenever I'm in town." "You come to Seattle a lot?" Ethan asked, trying to sound casual. "More recently, I'm opening a West Coast office, so I've been back and forth for the last 6 months." She paused. "I almost called you, a few times." "Why didn't you?" "Same reason you never called me, I'd guess." Didn't know what to say after all this time. Lily was watching them over her pizza slice, her eyes darting back and forth like she was following a conversation in another language. "Are you guys going to be friends again?" she asked. Ethan and Victoria looked at each other. "I don't know," Ethan said honestly. "That's complicated." "Why?" "Because adults make things complicated," Victoria said. "It's kind of our specialty." "That's dumb." "You're not wrong." After pizza, Lily crashed hard, falling asleep in the middle of the box fort with Mr. Hopsworth tucked under her arm. Ethan carefully picked her up, and she barely stirred, her head heavy against his shoulder. "I should get her home," he said quietly. Victoria walked them to the door, and the hallway suddenly felt very small. She was close enough that he could smell her perfume, something different from what she used to wear, more expensive probably, but with the same warm vanilla undertone. "Thank you," she said, "for helping and for staying. It was nice not eating alone for once." Lily had fun. "What about you?" He should have lied. Should have given some non-committal answer that didn't expose the mess of feelings currently tangled up in his chest. But Ethan had never been good at lying to Victoria. "Yeah," he admitted. "I did." Something shifted in her expression, hope, maybe, or hunger. She took a half step closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "Ethan." Later, he wouldn't be able to say who moved first. Maybe it was him, maybe it was her, maybe it was both of them pulled by the same gravity that had always existed between them. All he knew was that 1 second they were standing there, and the next his free hand was in her hair and her mouth was on his, and the world narrowed to the taste of her, the feel of her, the impossible reality of this moment. It was different from how he remembered, desperate where it used to be playful, sharp where it used to be sweet. She kissed him like she was trying to prove something, and he kissed her back like he was trying to forget why he'd ever let her go. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I can't do this," Ethan said, even though his hand was still tangled in her hair. "I know. This is a terrible idea." "Probably." "I have a daughter. I can't just—" "I know, Ethan." Lily stirred against his shoulder, and reality came crashing back. He took a step backward, and Victoria let him go, her hand falling away from where it had been clutching his shirt. "I'm sorry," he said. I shouldn't have. Don't. Victoria's voice was sharp. Don't apologize for that. Then what do you want me to say? I don't know. Nothing. Something. Not sorry. She wrapped her arms around herself. I've spent 10 years wondering if I made a mistake, Ethan. 10 years building a life that looks perfect on paper but feels empty most days. And then I walk into the wrong apartment and there you are, and I kiss you, and it feels like coming home, and I just... She stopped, pressing her fingers to her mouth like she could take back the words. Ethan shifted Lily's weight on his shoulder. His daughter. His priority. The life he'd built that had nothing to do with Victoria Hale and everything to do with the choices he'd made. This can't happen, he said quietly. Whatever this is, whatever you're feeling, it can't happen. Why not? Because you're leaving again. Because that's what you do, Victoria. You chase the next big thing, the next opportunity, and I won't let Lily get attached to someone who's going to disappear. I'm buying an apartment across the hall. That's not disappearing. You said yourself you're not sure how long you'll be in Seattle. I said I travel for work. That's different from leaving. Is it? The question hung between them, heavy and accusing. Victoria's jaw tightened, and he could see her retreating behind that CEO mask again, walls going up one by one. You know what, Ethan? You're right. This was a mistake. Her voice had gone cold, professional. Thank you for helping with the boxes. Have a good night. She stepped back into her apartment and closed the door, not quite a slam, but close enough to make her point. Ethan stood there in the hallway, his daughter asleep on his shoulder, the taste of Victoria still on his lips, and wondered how his life had gotten so completely derailed in the span of 12 hours. He didn't see her for 3 days. Not that he was looking. He definitely wasn't timing his comings and goings to avoid running into her in the hallway, and he certainly wasn't listening for sounds from her apartment late at night when he couldn't sleep. Lily asked about her twice, once on Wednesday morning. Is Victoria coming for breakfast? And again on Friday evening, can we invite her for movie night? Both times, Ethan deflected with vague answers about Victoria being busy with work. On Saturday morning, he woke to the smell of something burning. Not burning like his toaster, burning like actual smoke, the kind that had him bolting out of bed and into the hallway in his boxers before his brain fully engaged. The smoke was coming from under Victoria's door. Shit, 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 he pounded on the door. Victoria, Victoria, open up. No answer. He tried the knob, locked. Of course it was locked. He was about to kick it down when he remembered Sarah Chen's key, the one Victoria had used to accidentally break into his apartment. The one Sarah had probably given back to her after the mix-up. Ethan ran to his apartment, grabbed his phone, and called Sarah. It's 6 a.m, she answered groggily. Does Victoria have your key? What? Ethan, does she have your key? Yes, I gave it back to her. Why? Her apartment's on fire. What? He hung up and called 911, then did the only thing he could think of. He kicked the door. It took 3 tries and a possibly broken toe, but the frame finally splintered and the door swung open. Smoke poured out, thick and gray, and Ethan yanked his shirt over his nose and mouth as he plunged inside. Victoria! The smoke was coming from the kitchen. He found her there, coughing and waving a dish towel at the stove where a pan was actively engulfed in flames. What the hell are you doing? Ethan shouted over the smoke alarm's shriek. Cooking, she shouted back. That's not cooking, that's arson. He grabbed the fire extinguisher from under her sink, thank God she had one, and blasted the pan until the flames died. White foam covered everything, and the smoke was still thick enough to choke on, but at least nothing was actively on fire anymore. Victoria was staring at the destroyed pan with an expression somewhere between mortification and fury. I was just trying to make pancakes, she said quietly. Pancakes? For your daughter. I heard her talking about wanting homemade breakfast, and I thought... She broke off, coughing. Ethan grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the living room, away from the worst of the smoke. You thought you'd burn down the building? Obviously that wasn't the plan. Victoria, you can't... He stopped, really looking at her for the first time. She was wearing pajamas, expensive silk things that probably cost more than his monthly grocery budget, and her hair was a mess, and there were tears in her eyes from the smoke, and she looked completely defeated. Something in his chest cracked. Come on, he said more gently. Let's get you some air. He led her out to the hallway, and that's where Lily found them, sitting on the floor with their backs against the wall, both of them covered in soot, the hallway still hazy with smoke. Daddy? Lily's voice was small and scared. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. He held out an arm and she ran into it, burying her face against his shoulder. Everything's okay. It smells like burning. That's because Victoria tried to cook breakfast. Victoria let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I'm really bad at cooking. You think? Ethan felt his mouth twitch despite everything. I can negotiate billion-dollar mergers. I speak 4 languages. I have 3 degrees. But apparently I cannot make pancakes without nearly committing arson. 4 languages? English, Mandarin, Spanish, and French. Show off. This time it was definitely a laugh. Victoria wiped at her eyes, smearing soot across her cheek. I just wanted to do something nice. Lily mentioned pancakes, and I thought, I don't know what I thought. Lily had pulled back from Ethan's shoulder and was studying Victoria with those serious eyes. You were making pancakes for me. I was trying to. Obviously, I failed spectacularly. Do you know the difference between baking powder and baking soda? Victoria blinked. No? That's probably the problem, Lily said with the confidence of someone who'd watched exactly one cooking show. The fire department arrived 10 minutes later. 2 trucks, full crew, the works. They cleared the apartment, lectured Victoria about smoke alarms and fire safety, and gave Ethan a suspicious look when they saw his broken toes and the splintered door. She locked herself in with a grease fire, Ethan explained. I had to break in. The fire chief, a woman in her 50s with 0 tolerance for nonsense, looked between them. And you are? The neighbor. Uh-huh. She didn't sound convinced. Ma'am, do you want to press charges for the door? What? No. Victoria looked horrified. He probably saved my life. Did he? The fire was pretty bad. Bad enough that you couldn't use the extinguisher yourself? Victoria's cheeks flushed. I didn't know where it was. It's under the sink, standard location. I just moved in. The fire chief sighed like she'd had this conversation 1,000 times. All right, no charges, no injuries, minimal property damage. But get that door fixed today, and for God's sake, learn how to cook or stick to takeout. After they left, Ethan, Victoria, and Lily stood in the smoke-stained hallway, looking at the wreckage of Victoria's door. I'll pay for the repairs, Victoria said. You better. That's coming out of my security deposit. I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to. I know. Ethan rubbed his eyes, suddenly exhausted. It's fine, just maybe next time you want to do something nice for Lily, stick to store-bought. There's going to be a next time? He looked at her. Really looked at her. Standing there in her expensive pajamas and borrowed gilt, hair a mess, face streaked with soot, looking nothing like a billionaire CEO, and everything like the girl who used to burn microwave popcorn in their dorm and laugh about it until they both cried. Yeah, he said, surprising himself. I think there might be. Well, Victoria's smile could have powered the entire building. Can Victoria come to our apartment? Lily asked, since hers is all smoky. I don't want to impose, Victoria started. You almost burned down the building trying to make my daughter pancakes. The least I can do is offer you coffee. Do you have a working coffee maker? As of yesterday, yes? Then yes, please, coffee sounds amazing. They trooped across the hall to Ethan's apartment, him in boxers and a t-shirt, Victoria in silk pajamas, Lily in her butterfly nightgown. If any of the neighbors saw them, there would definitely be questions. Ethan didn't care. He made coffee while Victoria sat at the kitchen table, Lily chattering to her about the proper way to make pancakes, information gleaned entirely from YouTube since Ethan usually made them from a mix. The morning light was streaming through the windows now, turning everything soft and golden. And for a moment, Ethan let himself imagine this was normal, that this was his life, mornings with coffee and conversation, and the 2 people who somehow fit together despite all the reasons they shouldn't. I can teach you, Lily was saying, to make pancakes. It's not hard if you know the steps. Victoria looked genuinely touched. I would like that very much. But not today, because your kitchen is all destroyed. Fair point. Maybe next Saturday? Daddy doesn't work on Saturdays. Both Victoria and Lily looked at Ethan, waiting. He should say no. should maintain boundaries, protect his daughter, protect himself, should remember that Victoria had a life in other cities, other countries, and this moment was just that, a moment, not a promise. But Lily was looking at him with such hope, and Victoria was looking at him with such careful neutrality, trying not to show how much the answer mattered. Yeah, Ethan heard himself say for the second time in 5 minutes. Next Saturday works. The smile Lily gave him was pure sunshine. The smile Victoria gave him was something else entirely, complicated and careful and full of possibility. And Ethan realized, with a sinking feeling in his stomach, that he was already in way too deep. Saturday came faster than Ethan expected, and with it, a realization that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. He'd spent the entire week thinking about Victoria. Not just thinking, obsessing, replaying their kiss in the hallway until the memory felt worn and fragile. Lying awake at night listening to the sounds from her apartment, footsteps, water running, once the faint sound of her laughing on the phone. Each noise a reminder that she was right there, close enough to reach but impossibly far away at the same time. He'd tried to convince himself it was just nostalgia, that seeing her again had triggered some kind of emotional muscle memory, and once the shock wore off, everything would settle back into normal. But then he'd catch himself checking his reflection in the mirror before taking out the trash, or feeling disappointed when he didn't run into her in the hallway, and he knew he was lying to himself. The worst part? Lily had noticed. "You keep looking at the door," she'd said on Thursday night during dinner. "No, I don't." "You do, like you're waiting for someone." "I'm not waiting for anyone." She'd given him a look that said she didn't believe him for a second, then gone back to her macaroni and cheese. 7 years old and already able to see through his bullshit, he was in so much trouble. Now it was Saturday morning, 9:30, and Lily was practically vibrating with excitement as she organized her pancake-making supplies on the counter. She'd made Ethan go to the store the night before for specific ingredients: buttermilk, vanilla extract, fresh blueberries, and had created what she called a teaching plan that involved step-by-step instructions written in crayon on notebook paper. "Do you think she'll actually come?" Lily asked for the third time in 20 minutes. She said she would. But what if she forgot? "Then we'll make pancakes ourselves and eat them all before she gets here." Lily giggled, but kept glancing at the door. She'd changed her outfit twice, first the butterfly dress, then overalls, finally settling on jeans and a purple sweater that she claimed made her look professional. Her hair was in 2 neat braids, courtesy of YouTube tutorials Ethan had somehow mastered over the years, and she'd insisted on setting the table with their nice plates, the ones they usually only used for Thanksgiving. Ethan was trying very hard not to think about what it meant that his daughter was this invested in impressing Victoria. At exactly 10 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Lily practically launched herself across the room. "She's here!" "Use the peephole first," Ethan called out, but Lily had already yanked the door open. Victoria stood in the hallway holding a bakery box and looking nervous. She'd dressed casually, jeans, a soft gray sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. But even casual looked expensive on her. The kind of expensive that came from good tailoring and quality fabric. The kind Ethan had never been able to afford even when he'd had a better job. "Hi," Victoria said, and there was something almost shy in her voice. "I brought muffins, as backup, in case the pancake lesson ends in disaster." "It won't end in disaster," Lily announced confidently. "I'm an excellent teacher." "I don't doubt it." Victoria's eyes found Ethan's over Lily's head, and something passed between them, a question, maybe, or an acknowledgement of how strange this was, how fragile. He stepped back, making room. "Come in." The apartment felt smaller with Victoria in it. She set the bakery box on the counter, and Ethan caught a glimpse of the label, some French patisserie downtown that probably charged $15 per muffin. He wanted to be annoyed by it, by the casual way she spent money on things he'd have to budget for, but mostly he just felt tired. "Okay," Lily said, clapping her hands together. "First rule of pancake making, you have to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. "Got it." Victoria moved to the sink, and Lily followed, narrating the proper hand-washing technique with the seriousness of a surgeon prepping for an operation. Ethan leaned against the counter and watched them. There was something surreal about the scene, this powerful CEO who probably had assistants and chefs and people to handle every detail of her life. taking instructions from a 7-year-old on how to properly dry between your fingers. Good job, Lily declared. Now, we need to gather our ingredients. This is called mise en place, which is French for everything in its place. Where did you learn that? Ethan asked. Cooking YouTube? Miss Sarah lets me watch during afternoon care sometimes. Victoria caught his eye, and they shared a smile. The kind of smile that felt like a secret, like something just for them. For the next hour, Ethan's kitchen became a flour-dusted laboratory of trial and error. Lily was a surprisingly patient teacher, walking Victoria through each step with careful precision. Measuring the dry ingredients, whisking the wet ones, explaining the importance of not overmixing the batter. See, you want it lumpy, Lily said, pointing at the bowl. If you mix it too much, the pancakes get tough. Lumpy. Got it. Victoria was taking notes on her phone, and Ethan couldn't tell if she was serious or humoring his daughter. And you have to let the batter rest for 5 minutes. That's when the magic happens. What kind of magic? The baking powder starts working and makes little air bubbles. That's what makes them fluffy. You really know your stuff, Victoria said, sounding genuinely impressed. Lily beamed. Daddy says if I'm going to learn something, I should learn it right. Smart advice. They were standing close together at the counter, Lily on a step stool between them, and Ethan was struck by how natural it looked, like they'd done this before, like they could do it again. He pushed the thought away. When it came time to actually cook, Lily supervised while Victoria nervously approached the stove. Heat on medium, Lily instructed. Not too hot, or they'll burn on the outside and be raw in the middle. Like last week's disaster, Victoria muttered. Exactly like last week's disaster. Ethan handed her the ladle. You've got this. Their fingers brushed, and Victoria looked up at him, startled. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things neither of them could say with Lily standing right there. Medium heat, he said quietly, and don't flip them until you see bubbles on the surface. Bubbles, right. She poured the first pancake, and they all held their breath as it sizzled on the griddle. When the edges started to set and tiny bubbles appeared in the batter, Lily practically bounced with excitement. There, see the bubbles? That means it's ready to flip. Victoria wielded the spatula like it might explode, but she managed a decent flip. The pancake landed a little off-center but intact, golden brown on the cooked side. I did it, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. You did it! Lily threw her arms around Victoria's waist, and Ethan watched Victoria's face transform. Surprise giving way to something softer, more vulnerable. She rested one hand on Lily's head, and when she looked at Ethan, there were tears in her eyes. You okay? He asked. Yeah, this is nice. It was nice, that was the problem. It was so nice that Ethan could feel himself forgetting all the reasons this was a bad idea, could feel himself starting to believe that maybe, possibly, this could work. They made an entire batch of pancakes, some better than others. Lily declared herself proud of her student, and they ate at the kitchen table with butter and syrup and the blueberries Lily had insisted on. The muffins Victoria brought sat forgotten in their expensive box. These are really good, Victoria said, and she sounded almost surprised. That's because we made them with love, Lily said seriously. Is that the secret ingredient? Yep, love and buttermilk. Ethan snorted into his coffee, and Victoria grinned at him, and for a moment everything felt easy. Then Lily asked the question he'd been dreading. Victoria, do you have kids? The easy feeling shattered. Victoria set down her fork carefully, and Ethan could see her choosing her words. No, I don't. Why not? Lily, Ethan warned. It's okay. Victoria took a breath. I guess I never made time for it. I was always focused on work, building my company, and the years just kind of got away from me. Do you want kids? I used to think I did. Now I'm not sure it's possible. Why wouldn't it be possible? Because having kids requires being present, being there for them every day. And my job takes me all over the world. That wouldn't be fair to a child. Lily considered this with the gravity of someone much older. My mom wasn't present. She died when I was a baby. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria's eyes went wide, and she looked at Ethan with something like horror. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. It's fine, Ethan said, even though it wasn't, even though talking about Maya always felt like swallowing glass. It's not fine. I shouldn't have assumed. You didn't know. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand before he could think better of it. Really? It's okay. But Victoria was looking at Lily now, and Ethan could see her recalculating everything. Your mom, did you know her at all? No? She died right after I was born. Daddy says she was very brave. I'm sure she was. He has pictures. Want to see? Before Ethan could intervene, Lily had hopped down and raced to the living room, returning with the photo album Maya's parents had made. It was a small thing, maybe 20 pages, full of pictures from her too short life. Lily flipped it open to her favorite page, a photo of Maya holding newborn Lily in the hospital, both of them looking exhausted and perfect. That's her. That's my mom. Victoria stared at the photo for a long moment, and Ethan watched her face carefully. He'd seen different reactions to this moment over the years. Pity, mostly. Sometimes discomfort. Once, from a woman he'd briefly dated, something that looked like jealousy of a dead woman, which had ended that relationship real fast. But Victoria just looked sad. She's beautiful, she said quietly. And you look just like her. I have Daddy's eyes, though. See? Lily pointed between the photo and Ethan. You do. Victoria closed the album gently and handed it back. Thank you for showing me. After breakfast, Lily wanted to play a game she'd invented that involved complex rules about dragons and knights that changed every 30 seconds. Victoria gamely went along with it, pretending to be captured by the dragon, a stuffed animal unicorn, because Lily didn't have a dragon, while Lily rescued her with a foam sword. Ethan cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their laughter from the living room, and tried to figure out what the hell he was doing. This was supposed to be simple. Victoria was his neighbor. They had history, sure, but that's all it was. History. He wasn't supposed to let her into his life like this, into Lily's life, where she could become important and then leave and break both their hearts. But watching her now, sprawled on his living room floor with his daughter, making ridiculous dragon noises and laughing when Lily tickled her with the foam sword, Ethan couldn't remember why keeping distance had seemed so important. His phone buzzed. A text from Mike. Need you tomorrow. Jenkins called in sick, and we're behind schedule. Time and a half. Ethan swore under his breath. Sunday was supposed to be his day with Lily. They had plans, the zoo, maybe the aquarium if the weather was bad. He'd promised. He was typing out a response when Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway. Everything okay? Work stuff. They need me tomorrow. I thought you had Sundays off. Usually, but we're short-staffed and I can't really say no to time and a half. Victoria leaned against the doorframe, and there was something calculating in her expression, the CEO look, the one that said she was working through a problem. What were you planning to do tomorrow? Zoo with Lily, or the aquarium. What if I took her? Ethan looked up sharply. What? I could take Lily to the zoo, or the aquarium, whichever she prefers. Victoria said it casually, like she was offering to pick up his dry cleaning, not spend an entire day with his daughter. You're serious? Why wouldn't I be? Because you barely know her. Because you probably have important CEO things to do. Because you don't trust me with her, Victoria finished. That stopped him cold. It's not that, isn't it? Victoria's... Look, I get it. I'm not her parent. I'm barely a part of her life. But I had fun this morning, Ethan. Really fun. And Lily seemed to enjoy having me around, and I'm offering to help because you clearly need it, and I happen to have a free Sunday. You have a free Sunday. Shocking, I know. Turns out even billionaire CEOs occasionally have time off. Don't do that. Do what? Make jokes about the money thing. It's not funny. Victoria's face shuddered. Right, sorry. Forget I offered. She turned to leave, and Ethan felt like an asshole. Wait. She stopped but didn't turn around. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. He set his phone down and ran both hands through his hair. The money thing makes me uncomfortable, okay? It's stupid, but it does. You have this whole life, this whole world that I can't relate to, and sometimes it feels like we're from different planets, Victoria said quietly. Yeah. We always were, though, even back then. Back then it felt different. Because we were young and stupid and thought love could overcome anything. She finally turned around, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. But we weren't wrong, Ethan. We were just early. What does that mean? It means maybe we needed to become these people. You with Lily, me with my company, before we could actually make this work. If it even can work. If you even want it to. The question hung between them, heavy and terrifying. From the living room, Lily called out, "Victoria, you have to come back. The dragon's getting away." Victoria wiped quickly at her eyes. "We don't have to figure this out right now. The zoo offer stands if you want it. No pressure, just think about it." She disappeared back into the living room, and Ethan stood alone in his kitchen, feeling like he was standing at the edge of a cliff with no idea if jumping would end in flying or falling. He thought about it for exactly 30 seconds before texting Mike, "I'll be there." Then he went to the living room and found Victoria and Lily building a blanket fort. "Hey, Lilybug, how would you feel about going to the zoo with Victoria tomorrow?" Lily's head popped out of the fort, eyes wide. "Really? Really? Daddy has to work, but Victoria offered to take you if you want to go." "Do I want to go? Yes! Yes, yes, yes!" She launched herself at Victoria, who caught her with a surprised laugh. "I'll take that as a yes," Victoria said. "Can we see the penguins? And the tigers? And the baby elephant? We can see everything your heart desires." Lily was already planning out their route, narrating at top speed, and Victoria was nodding along like this was the most important meeting she'd ever attended. Ethan watched them and felt something crack open in his chest, something that felt dangerous and necessary, and completely out of his control. Later, after Victoria had gone back to her apartment and Lily was in bed, Ethan sat on his couch in the dark and let himself think about what was happening. He was falling for her again. Maybe he'd never stopped. Maybe that's why no relationship had worked in the years since Maya died. Because he'd been comparing everyone to a memory, to a ghost of what Victoria had been, and no one could compete with that. But this wasn't a memory. This was real. This was Victoria in his kitchen making pancakes, Victoria on his floor playing dragons, Victoria offering to take his daughter to the zoo like it was the most natural thing in the world. This was Victoria trying to fit into his life, and him being too scared to let her. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Is 10 a.m. okay for pickup tomorrow? And should I pack lunch or buy there?" V. He saved her number and typed back, "10 is fine. Lily will want to eat at the zoo. She likes the hot dogs even though they're terrible." Hot dogs. Got it. Thank you for trusting me with her. Don't make me regret it. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I won't, I promise. Ethan stared at those words for a long time before responding. I know. The next morning, Lily was up at 6, too excited to sleep. She changed outfits 4 times, finally settling on jeans, sneakers, and a jacket with a tiger on it. She'd packed her backpack with what she deemed zoo essentials: sunscreen, her water bottle, Mr. Hopsworth for moral support, and a disposable camera Ethan had bought her for her birthday. What if Victoria doesn't know about the penguins? Lily asked while Ethan braided her hair. Then you'll tell her. What if we get lost? Victoria's a smart lady. She won't let you get lost. What if... Lily. Ethan turned her around to face him. What's really wrong? She bit her lip, and suddenly she looked very young. What if she doesn't like me as much when it's just us? What if I'm boring without you there? Ethan's heart broke a little. Baby, you are the least boring person I know. Victoria's going to have the best time with you, I promise. How do you know? Because I always do. That seemed to satisfy her, and when Victoria knocked at exactly 10, Lily answered with confidence instead of nerves. Victoria had dressed for the occasion. Jeans, sneakers, a light jacket, and a backpack that probably cost more than Ethan's car. She looked young like this, more like the girl he remembered, and when she smiled at Lily, her whole face lit up. Ready for an adventure? So ready. Ethan walked them downstairs, helped buckle Lily into the back seat of Victoria's car, some sleek thing he didn't recognize but that probably cost 6 figures, and tried not to show how nervous he was. She needs sunscreen reapplied every 2 hours, he said, leaning into Victoria's window. And she gets cranky if her blood sugar drops, so snacks every few hours. And she's scared of the loud bird exhibits but won't admit it, so if she seems nervous... Ethan. Victoria put her hand over his on the window frame. I've got this. I promise. I know. I know. Her eyes were soft. It's hard, but we'll be fine. Better than fine. He watched them drive away, Lily waving enthusiastically from the back window, and felt like he'd just handed over something precious and irreplaceable. Work was hell. Jenkins being sick meant Ethan had to cover 2 positions, and the project manager was in a mood. And by noon, Ethan had smashed his thumb with a hammer and was seriously reconsidering every life choice that had led him to this moment. "You're distracted," Mike observed during their lunch break. "I'm fine. You've checked your phone 6 times in the last 10 minutes. I'm just... Lily's at the zoo with a friend, making sure everything's okay." Mike raised an eyebrow. "A friend, huh? This the same friend who almost burned down your building making pancakes? How did you sit? Mrs. Chen called my wife. You know how it is." Small apartment buildings were worse than small towns for gossip. "It's not what you think." "What do I think?" "That it's something. That it means something." "Doesn't it?" Ethan didn't have an answer to that. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria, and attached was a photo. Lily in front of the penguin exhibit, grinning so wide it looked like her face might split, one hand pressed against the glass where a penguin was swimming past. The message said, "She's perfect. We're having the best time." Another photo came through, this one a selfie of Victoria and Lily, both making silly faces at the camera, the elephant enclosure visible in the background. Then another, Lily eating cotton candy that was bigger than her head, blue sugar coating her face. Then another, the 2 of them on a bench, Lily leaning against Victoria's shoulder, both of them looking tired and happy. "Yeah," Mike said, looking at Ethan's face. "Definitely not something." By the time Ethan got home at 6, he was exhausted, filthy, and had approximately 17 splinters in his hands. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step an effort, and almost tripped over his own feet when he saw them. Victoria and Lily were sitting in the hallway outside his apartment, surrounded by shopping bags. Lily was practically asleep on Victoria's shoulder, and Victoria was reading something on her phone with one arm around his daughter. They looked up when he approached, and Lily's face transformed. "Daddy, we had the best day ever." "Yeah?" He unlocked the door and they all shuffled inside. "Tell me about it." What followed was a 15-minute stream of consciousness recap that involved penguins, tigers, ice cream, a gift shop where Victoria had apparently bought half the inventory, and something about a bird show that Lily described as the most beautiful thing ever. And Victoria knew all the animal facts. She's like a zoo encyclopedia. "I may have done some research last night," Victoria admitted. "Some research," Lily said with the gravity of someone impressed. She knew about penguin mating habits. "That seems like important information. Very important." Lily yawned, suddenly crashing from her sugar high and the excitement of the day. Ethan sent her to wash up for dinner, and then it was just him and Victoria in the kitchen. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Seriously, you didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to." Victoria started unpacking the shopping bags. A stuffed penguin, a tiger t-shirt, a book about elephants, 3 postcards, and what looked like an entire gift shop's worth of candy. "She's an amazing kid, Ethan. Smart, funny, kind. You've done an incredible job with her." "I've done my best. It shows." She paused, holding a bag of gummy bears. "I had fun today. More fun than I've had in years, actually. Playing third wheel to a 7-year-old? Being part of something that matters." She set down the candy and looked at him directly. "I spend my days in boardrooms and on conference calls, making decisions that affect thousands of people I'll never meet. It's important work, but it's not. It doesn't feel like this felt. Real, present, mattering to one small person in a way that's immediate and tangible." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not trying to make this weird," Victoria continued. I wanted you to know. Today meant something to me. It meant something to her too, to both of us." They stood in the kitchen, the air between them heavy with possibility, and Ethan made a decision. "Do you want to stay for dinner? It's just spaghetti, nothing fancy, but I'd love to." Dinner was chaotic. Lily talked non-stop about the zoo, demonstrating how penguins walk and making Victoria laugh so hard she snorted, which made Lily laugh even harder. They ate at the coffee table because the kitchen table was covered with Lily's zoo drawings, and Victoria helped clean up afterward without being asked, moving around his kitchen like she'd been doing it for years. After Lily's bath, she insisted Victoria read her bedtime story. "If that's okay with your dad," Victoria added, glancing at Ethan. He should have said no. Should have maintained that boundary, kept Victoria out of the sacred bedtime routine. But Lily was looking at him with such hope, and Victoria was looking at him with such careful neutrality, and he was so tired of saying no to things that felt right. "Yeah, that's okay." He stood in the doorway and watched Victoria settle onto the edge of Lily's bed, Mr. Hopsworth tucked between them, reading Where the Wild Things Are with different voices for each monster. Lily giggled at all the right parts, asked Victoria to read her favorite page twice, and when it was done, she wrapped her arms around Victoria's neck and whispered something Ethan couldn't hear. Whatever it was made Victoria's eyes go bright with tears. "Good night, sweetheart," Victoria said, her voice thick. "Good night, Victoria. Thanks for the best day ever." Ethan tucked Lily in, kissed her forehead, and turned out the light. In the hallway, Victoria was leaning against the wall with her eyes closed. "You okay?" he asked. "She told me she wished I could be her mom." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. "Victoria, I know it doesn't mean anything. She's 7. She barely knows me. But Ethan, She opened her eyes, and they were swimming with tears. "What are we doing here?" "I don't know. That's not good enough. We can't keep dancing around this. It's not fair to Lily, and it's not fair to us." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me if there's a chance, any chance at all that this could be something, because if there's not, I need to know now, before I get any more attached to her, to both of you." Ethan thought about the last 2 weeks, about Victoria in his kitchen, Victoria playing dragons, Victoria taking his daughter to the zoo and buying out the gift shop and learning about penguin mating habits just to make Lily smile, about the way she looked at him sometimes, like he was still the boy she'd loved 10 years ago, and also someone entirely new. "There's a chance," he said quietly. "Yeah? Yeah, I'm terrified and I have no idea how this would work, and I'm probably going to screw it up, but there's a chance." Victoria closed the distance between them in 2 steps, and then she was kissing him, and it was different from the hallway kiss. Slower, deeper, less desperate, and more certain, like they were both finally admitting something they'd been denying. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I leave for Tokyo on Wednesday," Victoria said. Reality came crashing back. "For how long?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. "There's a deal that's been falling apart, and I'm the only one who can salvage it." "Of course you are." "Ethan, no, I get it. This is your job. This is what you do. But I'll come back. I promise I'll come back." Everyone promises that. Maya promised she'd beat the cancer. My dad promised he'd be at my college graduation. Promises don't mean... He stopped himself, but the damage was done. Victoria stepped back, hurt flashing across her face. "I'm not Maya. I'm not your dad. I'm here, Ethan, trying to figure out how to be part of your life, but I can't do that if you won't let me in. You're asking me to trust you, but you're also asking me to be okay with you leaving for weeks at a time, to be okay with the possibility that one day you'll leave and not come back. That's not fair. None of this is fair." His voice came out louder than he intended, and he glanced at Lily's door, lowering his voice. "None of this is fair, Victoria. You coming back into my life, making Lily love you, making me remember what it felt like to..." He stopped. "To what?" "To hope for something more." Victoria's expression softened. "Then hope. Please. I know I'm asking a lot, and I know I don't have the best track record with staying, but I'm trying to build a life here. A real life. And I want you and Lily to be part of it." "For how long?" "For as long as you'll have me." It was the right answer. It should have been enough. But standing there in his dim hallway, with the ghost of Maya's promises still echoing in his ears, and the memory of every person who'd left still fresh, Ethan couldn't make himself believe it. "I need time," he said, "to think about this, about what it would mean." "Okay." Victoria's voice was small. "How much time?" "I don't know. You'll be gone for 2 weeks anyway, so you'll decide while I'm gone if this is worth pursuing." "That's not... It's fine, Ethan. I get it. I'm asking you to take a huge risk, and you need to decide if I'm worth it." She moved toward the door, and he let her go because he didn't know what else to do. For what it's worth, I think we could be amazing together, the three of us. But I can't make you believe that. She left, and Ethan stood alone in his hallway for the second time in 2 weeks, wondering how he'd managed to fuck up something that had felt so right just an hour ago. He didn't sleep that night, couldn't stop replaying the conversation, couldn't stop seeing the hurt on Victoria's face when he'd compared her to his dad. She'd been right, that wasn't fair. But fair and true weren't always the same thing. Monday morning, Lily asked where Victoria was. She had to work, baby. Is she coming over tonight? I don't think so. Tomorrow? She's leaving for a work trip on Wednesday. She'll be gone for a couple weeks. Lily's face fell. But she'll come back, right? I don't know. Daddy? Lily's voice was sharp, serious. You have to make sure she comes back. That's not how it works. Why not? Because people leave. Because loving someone doesn't guarantee they'll stay. Because his sister had died despite all the love in the world, and his mom had left when he was 12, and Maya had fought so hard and lost anyway, and sometimes love just wasn't enough. But he couldn't say any of that to his 7-year-old daughter. It's complicated, Lily Bug. You're scared. He looked at her in surprise. What? You're scared she'll leave like Mom did. But Mom didn't leave on purpose. She didn't want to die. I know that. And Victoria's not sick. She's just going to work. That's different. How was his 7-year-old wiser than him? You're right, he admitted. I am scared. But you like her. I do. And she likes us. She does. So why can't you just be together? Because it wasn't that simple. Because there were logistics and complications, and the very real possibility that Victoria's life and his life were just too different to reconcile. Because he had a daughter to protect and a heart that had been broken enough times already. But looking at Lily's earnest face, at the hope shining in her eyes, Ethan realized something. He'd been so focused on protecting himself, on protecting her, that he'd forgotten what he was protecting them from, the possibility of loss. But in doing that, he was also protecting them from the possibility of gain, from love, from family, from everything they both deserved. You know what? He said. You're absolutely right. Tuesday night, he knocked on Victoria's door. She answered in pajamas, her hair wet from a shower, looking surprised and guarded. Ethan, can we talk? She hesitated, then stepped back. Come in. Her apartment had transformed in the 2 weeks since the fire. Furniture arranged, art on the walls, plants on the windowsills. It looked lived in now, like a home instead of a hotel, like she was planning to stay. I'm sorry, he said before he lost his nerve, for what I said, for comparing you to people who hurt me. That wasn't fair. No, it wasn't. And I'm sorry for making you prove yourself when you've already shown me who you are. You've been nothing but good to Lily, to me, and I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop when maybe there is no other shoe. Victoria crossed her arms, still guarded. Is there a but coming? No but. Just, I'm asking if the offer still stands. To try. To see if this could be something. Even though I'm leaving tomorrow? Especially because you're leaving tomorrow. Because I want you to come back. Because Lily wants you to come back. Because we both miss you when you're gone. And that has to mean something. Something in Victoria's expression cracked. And suddenly she was across the room, her arms around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. He held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. I'm coming back, she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. I swear to you, Ethan, I'm coming back. I believe you. And he did. Maybe not completely, not with every fiber of his being, but enough. Enough to take the risk. Enough to try. She pulled back just far enough to kiss him, and it felt like a promise, like a beginning instead of an ending. When do you leave? He asked when they finally broke apart. Flight's at 6 a.m. That's in 7 hours. I know. You should sleep. Probably. Neither of them moved. Will you call? He asked. When you get there? Every day if you want. I want. Then I will. They stood there in her living room holding each other, and Ethan let himself imagine what it could look like. This life they were tentatively building. Victoria coming home from trips, family dinners, Lily having someone else who loved her, who showed up, who stayed. It was terrifying. It was also the first thing that had felt right in years. I should go, he said reluctantly. Let you sleep. Or you could stay. His heart jumped. Victoria, just to sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight. He should have said no, should have gone back to his apartment, maintained some boundary. But he was tired of saying no to things that felt right. Okay, he said, just to sleep. They fell asleep on her couch. Victoria curled against his chest, his arms around her, and for the first time in years, Ethan didn't dream about losing people. He dreamed about coming home. Victoria's alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning, a sharp digital beep that jolted Ethan awake. For a disoriented moment, he couldn't figure out where he was. The couch was wrong, the ceiling was wrong, the weight against his chest was definitely wrong. Then Victoria stirred and it all came rushing back. Sorry, she mumbled, reaching blindly for her phone. Didn't mean to wake you. It's fine. His voice came out rough with sleep. You need to get ready. She didn't move, just stayed there with her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. Outside, Seattle was still dark, the apartment quiet except for their breathing and the distant sound of early morning traffic. I don't want to go, she said finally. I know. 2 weeks ago, this trip was all I could think about. The biggest deal of my career, the thing that would cement my company's position in the Asian market. And now all I can think about is that I'm going to miss pancake Saturdays. Ethan's chest tightened. We'll make pancakes when you get back. Promise? Promise. She tilted her head up to look at him, and even in the dim light from her phone, he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. What if you change your mind while I'm gone? What if 2 weeks is enough time for you to remember all the reasons this won't work? What if it's enough time for me to miss you so much I realize all those reasons don't matter? Is that what you think will happen? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. She kissed him then, soft and slow, like she was trying to memorize the feeling. When she pulled away, there were tears on her cheeks. I have to shower, she said. Get ready. Okay. You don't have to stay. You should go home, get some sleep before Lily wakes up. But Ethan couldn't make himself move, couldn't make himself leave when she looked this vulnerable, this scared. I'll make coffee. Her smile was grateful and sad at the same time. He made coffee in her expensive machine that probably cost more than his monthly rent, figuring out the settings through trial and error. By the time Victoria emerged from the bedroom, dressed in tailored pants and a blouse, her hair perfect, every inch the CEO, he'd managed 2 decent cups. You figured out the espresso maker, she said, surprised. I'm not completely useless with fancy appliances. I never said you were. She took the cup he offered, wrapping both hands around it like she needed the warmth. Thank you for staying. Where else would I be? They drank their coffee in silence, and Ethan watched her transform before his eyes. The vulnerable woman from 10 minutes ago disappearing behind layers of confidence and control until she looked like someone who could walk into a boardroom and command respect with a single word. It should have intimidated him. Instead, it just made him sad that she felt like she needed the armor. Her phone buzzed. A car service, probably, waiting downstairs. That's me, Victoria said, setting down her cup. You have everything? Passport, laptop, charger, 3 weeks' worth of work that somehow has to fit into 2 weeks. She picked up her suitcase, sleek black, probably designer, and headed for the door. Ethan followed her out into the hallway. The building was still quiet, most of their neighbors not yet awake. In the stairwell, their footsteps echoed too loud. At the building entrance, Victoria's car was waiting, a black sedan with a driver who took her suitcase without a word. She turned to face Ethan, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Call me when you land, he said. I will. And Victoria? Yeah? Come back. Her eyes went bright. I will. I promise. She kissed him one more time, quick and desperate, and then she was in the car and pulling away, and Ethan was standing alone on the sidewalk at 5 in the morning, watching taillights disappear into the Seattle dawn. He went back upstairs, let himself into his apartment, and found Lily awake in her bed, clutching Mr. Hopsworth. Did Victoria leave? She asked. Yeah, baby. She had to catch an early flight. Without saying goodbye? The hurt in Lily's voice made him wince. She didn't want to wake you. I would have woken up. I wanted to say goodbye. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her hair back from her face. I know. I'm sorry. What if she doesn't come back? She will. How do you know? Because she promised. Because she'd looked at him with tears in her eyes and sworn she would. Because for the first time in years, Ethan was choosing to believe in something fragile and terrifying. I just know, he said. Trust me. Lily studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I trust you. The weight of that trust felt like a physical thing. The first week without Victoria was harder than Ethan expected. Not because anything was wrong. Work was work. Lily was Lily. His life continued in its familiar patterns. But the absence felt wrong, like he'd gotten used to a presence he hadn't even realized was there. And now there was just empty space. Victoria called that first night, her voice tinny through the international connection. I made it, she said. Flight was fine. Hotel is nice. Meeting starts tomorrow at 8 a.m. local time. That's midnight for us. I know. My sleep schedule is going to be destroyed. How long is the meeting? However long it takes to convince Tanaka Industries that partnering with us is worth the risk. She sighed, and he could hear the exhaustion in it. Could be 2 days. Could be 2 weeks. No pressure then. None at all. A pause. Is Lily still awake? It's 7 here. She's doing homework. Can I talk to her? Ethan handed the phone to Lily, who immediately brightened. Victoria, did you see any penguins on the plane? He couldn't hear Victoria's response, but Lily giggled, and for the next 10 minutes she narrated her entire day. Spelling test, recess drama, the butterfly project that was due next week. When she finally handed the phone back, she was smiling. She says she misses us, Lily reported. Yeah? Yeah. And she's bringing me a present from Japan. She doesn't have to do that. I told her that. She said she wanted to. After Lily went to bed, Ethan stayed on the phone with Victoria for another hour, talking about nothing and everything. She told him about Tokyo, the lights, the crowds, the hotel room that was smaller than his bathroom, but cost $800 a night. He told her about the job site, about Mike's terrible jokes, about the coffee maker that had finally died for real. I'll buy you a new one, she said. You don't have to buy me things. I know, but I want to. Is that okay? It should have bothered him, the casual way she offered to spend money on him like it meant nothing. But there was something vulnerable in her voice, like she was asking permission to care. Yeah, he said. That's okay. They fell into a rhythm over the following days. Victoria would call in the mornings, her evenings, and talk to Lily before school. Then she'd call again late at night, her early mornings, and talk to Ethan while she got ready for whatever meeting or negotiation filled her day. Tanaka's being stubborn, she said on day 4. Wants terms we can't agree to. Can you walk away? I could. But this deal is important. It opens up markets we've been trying to break into for years. So you'll find a compromise. That's the plan. How's your day been? I dropped a 2x4 on Jenkins' foot. He's fine. But Mike made me apologize 17 times. Was it an accident? Mostly. She laughed, and the sound made him smile even though she was 7,000 miles away. By day 7, Ethan realized he was in trouble. Not the external kind, the internal kind. The kind where his thoughts kept drifting to Victoria in the middle of conversations, where he caught himself checking his phone constantly, where Lily asked him twice if he was listening, and he had to admit he wasn't. You miss her, Lily said matter-of-factly over dinner. Is it that obvious? You get this face, like you're thinking about something far away. Sorry, Bug. It's okay. I miss her too. They were washing dishes together when his phone rang. Not the usual time for Victoria to call, and when he saw her name on the screen, his stomach dropped. Hey, he answered. Everything okay? The deal fell through. Her voice was flat, empty. Tanaka walked. We're done. Victoria, 3 months of work, 3 months of negotiations and compromises and late nights, and he walked. Said our terms weren't acceptable, that he'd found a better partner. Ethan could hear the devastation in her voice, the kind that went beyond professional disappointment. I'm sorry. I failed, Ethan. I came here promising my board this would work, and I failed. That's not, you did everything you could. It wasn't enough. So what happens now? Silence. Long enough that he thought they'd been disconnected. Then, I don't know, I have to call my board, figure out next steps. There's a possibility we'll have to look at downsizing, maybe even… She broke off. I can't think about this right now. Then don't. Come home. I can't just leave. Why not? The deal's done. There's nothing keeping you there. There's cleanup, damage control. I have to meet with the team here, figure out what went wrong, see if there's any way to salvage something from this disaster. Or you could come home and deal with it from here. It's not that simple. It could be. Another long silence. I'll think about it. She hung up, and Ethan stood in his kitchen holding his phone, feeling helpless and useless and too far away. Lily tugged on his shirt. Is Victoria okay? She's having a tough day at work. Should we do something nice for her? Like what? I don't know, send her a picture or make her a card? It was such a simple idea, such a kid solution, but it made Ethan's chest ache. Yeah, let's make her a card. They spent the next hour at the kitchen table with construction paper and markers and glitter that would probably still be showing up in random places 6 months from now. Lily drew a picture of the three of them, stick figures holding hands, a big smile on each face. Above it, she wrote in careful letters, "We miss you. Come home soon." Ethan added his own message on the inside. "Bad days don't last forever. Neither does distance. We're here when you're ready." They took a picture and texted it to Victoria. She responded 20 minutes later with a string of heart emojis and, "You two are going to make me cry in this hotel bar." "You're drinking?" Ethan texted back. "Just 1 or 3. I've earned it." He wanted to tell her to slow down, to take care of herself, to not make decisions when she was hurting, but he also knew what it felt like to have everything fall apart and need something to take the edge off. "Just be safe," he sent instead. "Always am." She didn't call the next morning, or the morning after that. Ethan told himself she was busy, dealing with the aftermath of the failed deal, managing her team. But worry gnawed at him, a persistent anxiety that something was wrong. On day 10, she finally called. 2 in the morning his time, which meant it was late evening in Tokyo. "I'm coming home," she said without preamble. "When?" "Tomorrow. Tonight. I already booked the flight. I'll land Thursday evening your time." Relief flooded through him. "Okay, good. I'm sorry I disappeared. The last few days it's been a lot." "I know. It's okay." "It's not, but thank you for saying it." She sounded exhausted. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." His stomach clenched. "What?" "The board wants me in London. They think I should relocate there permanently, manage the European operations while we figure out how to recover from this disaster." The world tilted. "For how long?" 6 months. Maybe a year. Maybe longer if things don't stabilize." "When?" "They want me there by the end of the month." 3 weeks. She'd be gone in 3 weeks, and this time it wouldn't be for a business trip. It would be permanent, or close enough to permanent that it didn't matter. "So that's it," Ethan said, his voice coming out harder than he intended. "We try this for 2 weeks, and now you're leaving for a year." "I haven't decided yet." "Well, what's there to decide? Your board wants you in London. Your company needs you. That's what you do, right? You go where you're needed. That's not fair." "None of this is fair, Victoria. You asked me to trust you, to believe you when you said you'd come back, and now you're telling me you might be leaving for a year? I said I haven't decided, but you're considering it, which means some part of you has already made the decision. That's not…" She stopped, and he could hear her breathing hard. "I'm trying to figure out how to do both. How to be what my company needs, and what you need, and what I need. But I don't have an answer yet." "Maybe that is the answer." "What does that mean?" "It means maybe we're kidding ourselves thinking this could work. You have a life that spans continents. I have a daughter and a job and a life that's right here. Those things don't fit together no matter how much we want them to." "So what are you saying?" Ethan closed his eyes, feeling like he was standing at that cliff edge again, only this time jumping meant pain instead of possibility. "I'm saying maybe we should stop pretending. Maybe it's better to end this now before what? Before I get on a plane and come back to Seattle and we have to have this conversation face to face? Before Lily gets more attached? Before this becomes something neither of us can walk away from?" "It's already something I can't walk away from," Victoria's voice cracked. Do you think this is easy for me? Do you think I want to choose between my career and the first real thing I've had in years? Then don't choose. Go to London. Save your company. That's what you're good at. And what about us? There is no us, Victoria. There's you in one city and me in another, and a lot of good intentions that don't actually change anything. The silence that followed was devastating. Fine, Victoria said finally, her voice cold. If that's what you want. It's not about what I want. Yes, it is. It's about you being too scared to fight for this. Too scared to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could figure it out if we actually tried. I am trying. I'm trying to be realistic instead of living in some fantasy where you coming back fixes everything. I never said it would fix everything. I said it would be a start. Well, maybe a start isn't enough. He heard her sharp intake of breath, the sound of something breaking. Then I guess we're done here. Victoria, but she'd already hung up. Ethan stood in his dark kitchen, his hand shaking around the phone, and felt the full weight of what he'd just done crash over him. He'd ended it, pushed her away before she could leave on her own terms, protected himself and Lily from inevitable heartbreak by creating it now, immediately, on his own schedule. It was the smart thing to do, the safe thing. So why did he feel like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life? He didn't sleep that night. Couldn't stop replaying the conversation. Couldn't stop hearing the hurt in Victoria's voice when she'd said, "Then I guess we're done here." Couldn't stop wondering if he'd just destroyed something that could have been extraordinary, because he was too afraid to risk being hurt. Lily knew something was wrong the moment she saw him at breakfast. Did you and Victoria have a fight?" she asked. Something like that. "Are you going to say sorry? It's more complicated than that, Bug. Is she still coming home tomorrow?" "I don't know." Lily's face crumpled and Ethan felt like the worst father in the world. But she promised. Sometimes grown-ups break promises. "That's not fair. She said she'd come back. She said we'd make pancakes." "I know, and I'm sorry, but you made her leave, didn't you?" Lily's voice was accusing. "You got scared and pushed her away like you always do. Lily, you did it with Miss Rachel and with Aunt Claire, and now with Victoria. Anytime someone tries to love us, you make them go away." The words hit like physical blows. Miss Rachel had been a teacher at Lily's school who'd asked Ethan out twice before he'd stopped returning her calls. Aunt Claire was Maya's sister, who'd wanted to be more involved in Lily's life, but Ethan had kept at arm's length because it hurt too much to see Maya's face in hers. "That's not what happened," he said weakly. "Yes, it is. And now Victoria's going to leave forever, and it's your fault." She ran to her room and slammed the door, and Ethan let her go because he didn't have a defense. She was right. She was 7 years old and she was absolutely right. He called in sick to work, something he almost never did. Spent the day in a fog, going through the motions of keeping himself and Lily functional while his mind kept circling back to Victoria. To the way she'd looked at him before she left for the airport, like he was something precious. To the sound of her laugh when Lily made terrible jokes. To the feeling of falling asleep with her in his arms and thinking, for the first time in years, that maybe he could have this. Maybe he deserved this. And then he'd thrown it away. His phone rang a dozen times throughout the day. Mike checking if he was okay, Mrs. Chen asking if he'd heard about the plumbing issue on the second floor, a robocall about his car's extended warranty. But not Victoria. Never Victoria. By evening, Lily had forgiven him enough to sit on the couch and watch a movie, though she wouldn't meet his eyes. They were halfway through Moana when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Rebecca Chen, Sarah's daughter. My mom asked me to check in. She said Victoria was supposed to come back today, but her apartment's been empty. Do you know if she's okay?" Ethan's heart stopped. Victoria was supposed to land at 6:30. It was almost 8 now. He pulled up her contact, hit call. It went straight to voicemail, called again, same thing. "Daddy?" Lily was watching him with worried eyes. "What's wrong?" "I'm sure it's nothing. Her flight was probably delayed." But he was already pulling up the airline's website, tracking flights from Tokyo to Seattle. Victoria's flight had landed on time at 6:32. 30 passengers had deplaned. No delays, no issues, no problems reported. So where was she? He tried calling again, voicemail. Sent a text. "Are you okay? Mrs. Chen said you haven't come home." No response. Another text. "Victoria, please. I'm worried. Just let me know you're safe. Nothing. By 9 o'clock, Ethan was pacing. By 9:30, he was checking news websites for accident reports. By 10, he was seriously considering calling hospitals. She's fine, he told himself. She's probably just staying at a hotel, processing. She's fine. But what if she wasn't? What if something had happened on the way home from the airport? What if she'd been in an accident and he'd spent their last conversation pushing her away? At 10:15, there was a knock on his door. Ethan practically ran to it, yanked it open, and found Victoria standing in the hallway. She looked terrible. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy like she'd been crying, and she was still wearing the same clothes she'd left in 10 days ago, now rumpled and creased. "I was in London," she said without preamble. "What?" "After I landed. I didn't come home. I got on another flight to London to meet with the board, to tell them I'd take the position, that I'd relocate, that they were right, and I should be there managing this disaster instead of trying to build a life in Seattle that was clearly never going to work." Ethan's chest felt like someone had wrapped bands around it. "Okay." And I sat in that boardroom and they talked about timelines and strategies and damage control, and all I could think about was pancakes. 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 And Lily's laugh. And the way you look at me sometimes like I'm the only person in the room. Tears were streaming down her face now. And I realized I couldn't do it. Couldn't choose the career over this, over you, over the possibility of having something real for the first time in a decade. Victoria. So I told them no. Told them I'd help manage the London office remotely, that I'd travel when absolutely necessary, but that my life is here now, in Seattle, with you, if you'll still have me. Ethan couldn't breathe. You turned them down. I turned them down. For me. For us. For the chance at being part of a family. For weekend pancakes and butterfly projects and all the normal, boring, beautiful things I've been missing out on while I built an empire that looks impressive on paper but feels empty every single day. Your career will survive. I'm good at what I do, Ethan. Good enough that I can do it from anywhere. And yeah, it'll mean more video calls and some travel, but I can make it work if you're willing to try. He stared at her, this powerful woman who'd just walked away from everything she'd built because she'd chosen him, chosen them, and felt something shift in his chest, something that felt like chains breaking, like walls coming down. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what I said on the phone, for pushing you away instead of fighting for this. You were scared. I was terrified. I still am." "Me too." She stepped closer. "But I think we could be terrified together. I think that might be better than being safe and alone." Lily was right. I push people away. I've done it my whole life. Then stop, please. I'm standing here asking you to stop. What if I screw this up? Then we'll figure it out. Together. What if you decide London was the right choice after all? I won't. How do you know? Because I've tried the London option. The career first, relationship never option. I've tried it for 10 years and it's made me successful and miserable. She reached for his hand and he let her take it. I want to try the scared and together option. I want to try the option where I come home to you and Lily and we figure out how to make this messy, complicated, beautiful life work. From inside the apartment, Lily's voice rang out. "Is that Victoria?" "Yeah, Bug," Ethan called back, not taking his eyes off the woman in front of him. "It's Victoria." "Did she come back?" "Yeah, she came back." Lily appeared in the doorway, took one look at them standing there holding hands in the hallway, and burst into tears. But they were happy tears, relief tears, and she threw herself at Victoria with enough force to nearly knock her over. "You came back!" Lily sobbed into Victoria's stomach. "I told you I would." Victoria was crying too now, holding Lily with one arm and reaching for Ethan with the other. He closed the distance and wrapped his arms around both of them. And standing there in his shabby hallway with these two people who had somehow become his entire world, Ethan finally let himself believe it. Let himself hope. Let himself imagine a future that included all three of them, messy and complicated and absolutely terrifying. "I love you," he said, the words spilling out before he could think better of them. "I think I never stopped, and I'm done pretending I don't." Victoria pulled back just enough to look at him, her face wet with tears and split with a smile. "Say it again." "I love you." "Again." I love you, Victoria Hale. I love you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. She kissed him then, and Lily made a disgusted noise but didn't let go of either of them. And Ethan realized that this right here, right now, was the moment his life stopped being about survival and started being about living. I love you too, Victoria whispered against his mouth. Both of you, so much. They stood there for a long time, the three of them tangled together in the hallway, before Mrs. Chen's door opened across the hall. Are you all going to stand out here all night? Or are you coming inside? She asked, but she was smiling. Some of us need our beauty sleep. They laughed and stumbled into Ethan's apartment, and Victoria looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. Really seeing it, not as a temporary stop, but as home. It's late, Ethan said. Lily should be in bed. I'm not tired, Lily protested, but she was already yawning. How about Victoria tucks you in, Ethan suggested. Can she stay? Lily asked. After I'm asleep? I don't want her to leave again. I'm not going anywhere, Victoria promised. I'll be right here when you wake up. You promise? I promise. This time, when Victoria read the bedtime story, Ethan stood in the doorway and watched without the fear that this was temporary. Watched Lily curl into Victoria's side like it was the most natural thing in the world. Watched Victoria smooth Lily's hair back with a tenderness that made his throat tight. When Lily finally fell asleep, Victoria carefully extracted herself and tiptoed to the door. In the hallway, Ethan pulled her close again, needing the contact, needing the confirmation that this was real. What happens now? He asked. Now we figure it out, day by day. Together. Together, he repeated, testing out the word. I like the sound of that. Me too. They sat on his couch, Victoria's head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, and Ethan let himself imagine all the days ahead. The fights they'd have, the compromises they'd make, the moments of doubt and fear and uncertainty, but also the pancake Saturdays and bedtime stories and all the small, ordinary moments that made up a life. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. The whole relationship thing. I'm going to mess up. So will I. You're going to want to buy Lily expensive things, and I'm going to get weird about it, probably. And I'm going to be insecure about the money difference and the lifestyle difference and basically everything. I know. And there will be times when you have to travel, and I'm going to worry and probably drive you crazy with phone calls. I'm counting on it. She tilted her head to look at him. We're going to fight, Ethan. We're going to have hard days. There will be moments when we both wonder if this was a mistake. But I'd rather have messy and real with you than perfect and empty with anyone else. When did you get so wise? About 3 hours ago in a London boardroom when I realized I was about to make the same mistake twice. He kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. Thank you. For what? For coming back, for choosing this, for being brave enough for both of us. I'm not brave, I'm terrified. Then we're terrified together. Together, she echoed, and the word sounded like a promise. They fell asleep on the couch like that, wrapped around each other, and when Ethan woke up in the middle of the night with a crick in his neck and Victoria drooling slightly on his shoulder, he smiled. This was real. This was happening. And for the first time in years, tomorrow didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to look forward to. Morning came too fast and too bright, sunlight streaming through the living room windows directly into Ethan's face. He blinked awake, disoriented for the second time in as many weeks, before remembering Victoria was here. Back. Real. She was still asleep on his chest, one arm thrown across his stomach, her hair a tangled mess that tickled his chin. He could feel the gentle rise and fall of her breathing, could hear the soft sounds she made, almost like purring. It was the most ordinary thing in the world, and also completely miraculous. The apartment was quiet except for those small sounds and the distant hum of traffic. Ethan let himself stay there, suspended in the moment, before reality started creeping in with all its complications and questions. Then Lily's door opened. Victoria! The shriek of pure joy was loud enough to wake half the building. Lily came running, launching herself at the couch, with zero regard for the fact that two adults were sleeping there. Victoria jerked awake with a startled gasp as Lily landed on top of both of them. You're really here? I thought maybe I dreamed it. I'm really here, Victoria managed, laughing despite being crushed. Oof, you're stronger than you look. Did you sleep over? I did. On the couch? It seemed safer than trying to walk home at midnight. Lily looked between them, her expression too knowing for a 7-year-old. You guys were cuddling. We were, Ethan said, deciding honesty was probably the best policy here. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Victoria's eyes found his, and he could see the question there. Were they? They'd said, I love you. She'd turned down London, but they hadn't actually defined what this was. Yeah, Ethan said. We are. Finally! Lily threw her arms around both of them again. Can we make pancakes to celebrate? Victoria groaned. It's barely 7 in the morning. That's when breakfast happens. She's got a point, Ethan said. I hate you both. But she was smiling, and 20 minutes later they were all in the kitchen. Ethan making coffee, Victoria supervising, while Lily mixed the batter with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times. It should have been awkward, this first morning after everything. But instead it felt easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Victoria was rumpled and makeup-free, wearing one of Ethan's old t-shirts that she'd grabbed from the clean laundry basket, and she looked more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. You're staring, she said without looking at him. Can't help it. Gross, Lily announced, but she was grinning. They made a mess of the pancakes. Too much batter on the griddle, uneven flipping, one that somehow ended up on the floor, but they tasted perfect because they made them together. Lily chattered about school, about the butterfly project that was due Monday, about how Emma's mom had said Emma could have a sleepover party for her birthday, and could Lily please go? Can Victoria come to the sleepover? Lily asked. That's not how sleepovers work, Ethan said. Why not? Because it's for kids your age. But Victoria's fun. I appreciate that, Victoria said. But your dad's right, although I'm available for drop-off and pickup service if needed. Really? Really? The casual way she said it, the assumption that she'd still be around in 3 weeks when the party happened, made Ethan's chest tight. This was what he'd been too scared to want. This presence, this certainty, this promise of future moments that included all 3 of them. After breakfast, Victoria needed to go to her apartment, change clothes, deal with the aftermath of 2 weeks abroad and a spontaneous trip to London. Lily wanted to come with her, and Ethan almost said no. They needed to talk, really talk, about what happened next, but Victoria caught his eye and gave a small nod. Sure, Bug. Help Victoria unpack. They disappeared across the hall, and Ethan cleaned up the kitchen, his mind racing. She'd said she loved him, said she'd chosen Seattle, chosen them. But what did that actually mean in practice? She still had a company to run, responsibilities that spanned continents. How was that supposed to work with his construction job and Lily's school schedule and the very real limitations of their day-to-day life? His phone buzzed. Mike. You coming in today, or should I assume you're still dying? Ethan had forgotten about calling in sick. Not dying. Can I take a personal day? 2 days in a row? You feeling okay? Yeah, just need to handle some things. Things involving the woman who almost burned down your building? Mrs. Chen talks too much. That's a yes, fine. Take the day, but you're working Sunday to make up for it. Deal. He was about to text Victoria when she appeared in the doorway, changed into fresh clothes, her hair damp from a shower. Lily was still in the other apartment, probably destroying Victoria's carefully organized luggage. Hey, Victoria said. Can we talk? Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd eaten pancakes an hour ago, but now the air felt heavier, more serious. I need to be honest with you, Victoria started, about what turning down London actually means. Ethan braced himself. Okay. My company is in trouble. The Tokyo deal falling through was a bigger blow than I let on. We're not going under or anything dramatic like that, but we're vulnerable right now. Competitors are circling, clients are nervous, and my board is questioning my judgment. Because you said no to London? Partially. Also because I let the Tokyo situation get as bad as it did before calling it. She twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture he'd never seen from her before. The next 6 months are going to be critical. I'll need to be hyper-focused, probably working longer hours than usual. There will be trips, shorter than before, hopefully, but necessary. And there's a chance I'll fail anyway, that the company will end up downsizing or selling or worse. And you're telling me this because? Because I need you to understand what you're signing up for. This isn't going to be easy. I'm not going to be the girlfriend who's available for dinner every night or who can drop everything for last-minute plans. Some weeks I might barely see you even though we live across the hall from each other. Ethan processed this. Okay. That's it? What do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled about it? I'm not. But I'm also not surprised. You're a CEO, Victoria. That comes with demands and responsibilities. I knew that when we decided to try this. But does Lily know that? Because it's one thing for you to be okay with me being absent sometimes, but she's 7. She's going to want time and attention, and I don't know if I can give her as much as she deserves. So we figure it out. We set expectations, we communicate, we adjust as we go. He reached across the table and took her hand. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be present when you can be and honest when you can't. What if it's not enough? Then we'll deal with that too. But we can't catastrophize before we've even started. Victoria looked at him like he'd said something profound instead of just practical. How are you so calm about this? I'm not calm. I'm terrified. But I'm also tired of letting fear make my decisions. When did you get so wise? I think around 3 a.m. when I woke up with you drooling on my shoulder and realized I wanted that every night for the rest of my life. She laughed, watery and surprised. I don't drool. You absolutely do. That's... okay, maybe a little. They sat there, hands linked across the table, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This wasn't going to be a fairy tale. It was going to be messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating, but it was also going to be real, and that mattered more than easy. There's something else, Victoria said. I want to be part of Lily's life, really part of it, not just the fun weekend stuff. I want to help with homework and go to parent-teacher conferences and know her friends' names, but I don't want to overstep or make it weird or... Victoria. Yeah? You already are part of her life. She asked if you could come to a sleepover party. She draws pictures of the 3 of us. Last week, she told me she wished you could be her mom. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She said that. She said that. And I know it's complicated because Maya will always be her mother, and I would never want to erase that or pretend it didn't happen. But if you want to be in Lily's life, really in it, then we'll figure out what that looks like together. I don't know how to be a parent. Neither did I when Lily was born. Nobody does. You just show up and try not to screw up too badly and hope the love makes up for the mistakes. That's terrifying. Welcome to parenthood. She wiped at her eyes, laughing. This is a lot. It is, but I think we can handle it, if you want to. I want to, more than I've wanted anything in a long time. She squeezed his hand. I love you. I know I said it last night, but I need you to know I meant it. This isn't some crisis decision I'm going to regret when things calm down. This is what I want. I love you too. Even though you're going to drive me crazy with your expensive coffee maker and your tendency to work through dinner and the fact that you probably make more in a month than I make in a year. We don't have to talk about the money thing. Actually, we do. Because it's going to come up, and I'd rather address it now than let it fester. Ethan took a breath. I'm never going to be able to buy you the things you can buy yourself. I can't take you to fancy restaurants or on exotic vacations. Our date nights are going to be pizza and Netflix, not caviar and the opera. I hate the opera. You know what I mean? I do. And I don't care. I've had the fancy dinners, Ethan. I've had the galas and the 5-star hotels and the life where everything is expensive and impressive and ultimately hollow. That's not what I'm looking for anymore. What are you looking for? This, you, Lily, messy pancake breakfasts and couch cuddles and feeling like I'm part of something that matters. She stood up, came around to his side of the table, and settled onto his lap. I know the money difference makes you uncomfortable. We can work on that. Set boundaries, split things fairly, whatever you need. But please don't let it become the thing that keeps us apart. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his forehead against hers. Okay, but I'm paying for dates. That's non-negotiable. Even if I make reservations at places you can't afford, then don't make reservations at places I can't afford. What if I want to take my boyfriend somewhere nice? Then I'll let you, occasionally, and try not to be weird about it. Deal. She kissed him, soft and sweet, and Ethan let himself get lost in it for a moment before remembering his daughter was 20 feet away. Lily's going to come back any second, he said against her mouth. Good point. But Victoria didn't move, just stayed there on his lap, her arms around his neck. Thank you. For what? For giving me a second chance, for letting me be part of this. Thank you for coming back. They stayed like that until Lily's voice rang out from across the hall. Victoria, I found your passport. Why do you have so many stamps? Victoria laughed and extracted herself from Ethan's lap. Duty calls. Go. Save your passport from my 7-year-old. Our 7-year-old, Victoria corrected, and the way she said it, casual and certain, made Ethan's heart stutter. The next few weeks were an exercise in adjustment and compromise. Victoria worked insane hours, often starting calls at 5 a.m. to sync with European time zones and finishing after Lily's bedtime. But she also made it to Lily's butterfly presentation at school, cheered louder than anyone else, and brought cupcakes for the whole class even though Ethan had told her it wasn't necessary. It's a big deal, Victoria had said. She worked hard on that project. You're going to spoil her. That's kind of the plan. They fell into routines without planning them. Victoria came over for breakfast on weekends, helped with homework on Tuesday and Thursday evenings when she wasn't traveling, and claimed Saturday mornings as sacred pancake time. She was terrible at remembering to reapply Lily's sunscreen and always packed too many snacks for school field trips, but she showed up. Consistently. Even when she was exhausted or stressed or dealing with a crisis at work. You don't have to come to everything, Ethan told her after she'd rearranged a board meeting to attend Lily's soccer game, a game where Lily spent most of the time picking dandelions in the outfield. I want to. Besides, watching her pick flowers is oddly entertaining. She's terrible at soccer. She's 7. She's supposed to be terrible. They had their first real fight 3 weeks in over something stupid. Victoria had bought Lily an expensive tablet for educational games without asking Ethan first. We talked about this, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice level while Lily played in the other room. Big purchases. We discuss first. It's not that big. And she needs something for the reading program her teacher recommended. She has my old tablet. It works fine. It's 4 years old and barely holds a charge. So I'll get her a new one. From a store normal people shop at, not some boutique where a tablet costs $800. Victoria's jaw tightened. This is about the money again. This is about you making decisions about my daughter without consulting me. Our daughter. You said our daughter. Don't turn this around. You can't just buy her things whenever you feel like it. That's not how this works. Then how does it work, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing, you want me to be part of her life, but only on your terms. I can help with homework, but not buy school supplies. I can go to soccer games, but not sign her up for the summer camp she's been talking about nonstop. I can love her, but not actually parent her. That's not fair. Isn't it? You say you want me involved, but every time I try to do something, you pull back and remind me that you're the parent, and I'm just… what? The girlfriend? The neighbor? What am I supposed to be here? Ethan didn't have an answer, because she was right. He'd been holding her at arm's length even while pulling her close, wanting her to be part of their family, but terrified of what it meant to actually share that role. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know what the rules are supposed to be. Maya and I never had to figure this out. She was Lily's mom. I was Lily's dad. It was clear. And now it's not clear, and that scares you. Yeah, it scares me. Because what if we do this wrong? What if Lily gets confused or hurt? Or what if she gains someone who loves her? Victoria interrupted. What if instead of trying to protect her from every possible bad outcome, we just let her have more love in her life? They stared at each other, both breathing hard, and Ethan realized this was the real fight. Not about the tablet, but about what they were building and whether he was brave enough to actually build it. Keep the tablet, he said finally. But next time, ask me first, please. I will. I'm sorry. You're right. I should have discussed it with you. And I'm sorry for making you feel like you don't have a place here. You do. We just need to figure out what that looks like. They worked it out slowly, through more conversations and a few more arguments. Established rules about purchases over a certain amount, about discipline decisions, about who handled what aspects of Lily's care. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments when Ethan felt territorial or Victoria felt shut out. But they kept talking, kept adjusting. Lily, for her part, adapted with the easy flexibility of childhood. She started calling Victoria's apartment V's place and asking if they could have dinner at our house or V's house, like they were interchangeable. When Ethan gently reminded her that Victoria's apartment was Victoria's, not theirs, Lily had just shrugged. But we're always there, and she's always here, so it kind of is ours. Hard to argue with that logic. Victoria's first business trip after coming back was brutal. 10 days in Singapore, back-to-back meetings, a deal that had to close or her company would take another major hit. She called every night, her face on the screen exhausted and drawn, but she always made time to ask about Lily's day, to hear about the latest playground drama or spelling test. "I miss you," she said on night 6. "Both of you." "We miss you too," Ethan said. Lily had already fallen asleep, curled against his side, clutching the stuffed panda Victoria had sent from the Singapore airport. "How's she doing? Really?" "She's okay. She asks about you a lot. Made me promise to tell her the second you text about coming home. 3 more days, 4 at most. We'll be here." "Ethan?" "Yeah? Is this working? Me being gone so much?" He looked down at Lily, peaceful in sleep, then back at the screen where Victoria was watching him with worried eyes. "It's not ideal, but it's working. We make it work because the alternative is not having you at all, and that's worse." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Come home, Victoria. We'll be waiting." She did come home 3 days later, and Lily tackled her in the airport with such force they almost fell over. They went straight to the apartment, not Victoria's, but theirs, because that's where the pancake ingredients were, and made dinner together even though it was 9 p.m. and way past Lily's bedtime. "This is becoming a terrible habit," Ethan observed, watching Lily stir pasta sauce while fighting to keep her eyes open. "It's a tradition," Victoria corrected. "Totally different." "How?" "Traditions are allowed to bend the rules." Lily fell asleep at the table, face down in her spaghetti, and Ethan carried her to bed while Victoria cleaned up. When he came back, she was standing at the sink, scrubbing a pan with more focus than it required. "Hey," he said softly. "What's wrong?" "I keep thinking about all the moments I'm missing, all the bedtimes and breakfasts and ordinary days. What if I'm not here enough? What if she grows up and barely remembers me because I was always gone?" Ethan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. "You're here enough. More than enough. And on the days you can't be, we understand. Lily understands. She's 7. She shouldn't have to understand." "Maybe not, but she does, and she loves you anyway. We both do." Victoria turned in his arms, buried her face against his chest. "I'm trying so hard to balance everything, to be good at my job and good for you and good for Lily, but I feel like I'm failing at all 3. "You're not failing, you're juggling. There's a difference. Feels the same sometimes." "I know. But Victoria, look at me." He waited until she lifted her head, met his eyes. "You flew home from Singapore after closing a massive deal, went straight to the airport to pick us up, and made spaghetti at 9 p.m. because it's tradition. You sent Lily a stuffed animal from the airport. You called every single night, even when you were exhausted. That's not failing. That's showing up in every way you know how. It doesn't feel like enough. It's enough for us." She kissed him then, desperate and grateful, and Ethan kissed her back, trying to pour into it all the reassurance he couldn't quite find words for. They made it work through trial and error and a lot of fumbling. Victoria taught Lily how to video call so they could talk even when she was traveling. Ethan learned to check Victoria's calendar and plan around her big work events. They established Friday night as family night. No work calls, no emails, just the 3 of them and whatever activity Lily picked. Sometimes it was movies. Sometimes it was board games that Lily made up rules for and they had to pretend made sense. Once it was an elaborate scavenger hunt through both apartments that ended with everyone eating ice cream on the floor. "This is weird, right?" Victoria said one night after Lily had gone to bed. They were in his apartment, on his couch, her feet in his lap. "That this is my life now?" "Weird how?" 6 months ago, I was working 18-hour days and sleeping in hotels and measuring success by profit margins. Now I'm playing made-up board games and eating ice cream on the floor and fighting with my CFO about why I can't take meetings during Friday dinner. Having regrets? Not even a little, just it's surreal sometimes, like I'm living someone else's life. Is it a good life? It's the best life. She wiggled her toes and he tickled her foot, making her yelp. Stop that! Make me! She launched herself at him, and they wrestled like teenagers until they were both breathless and laughing and tangled together on the couch. I love this, Victoria said, her head on his chest, his arms around her. I love us. I love this weird, complicated, messy thing we're building. Me too. Even when I'm gone too much and buy things without asking and don't know how to braid hair? Especially then. She tilted her head up to kiss him, and Ethan thought about how far they'd come from that first morning when she'd walked into his apartment by accident. How much had changed, how much had stayed the same. I was thinking, Victoria said against his mouth. Dangerous. Shut up. I was thinking, what if we moved in together? Officially? Ethan pulled back to look at her. Seriously? We basically already live together. Lily has stuff at both apartments. We eat dinner together most nights. You've slept at my place more than yours this week. Why not make it official? Because that's a huge step. I know, but I'm ready if you are. We could get a bigger place, somewhere with room for all of us. Maybe a house with a yard where Lily could play. Somewhere that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. A house. A yard. A place that belonged to all three of them. It was everything Ethan had stopped letting himself want years ago. That sounds expensive, he said, because of course that's where his brain went first. We'll figure out the finances. Split it fairly, whatever works. But Ethan, I want this. I want to wake up every morning with you. I want to be the person Lily comes to when she has a nightmare or needs help with homework. I want to build a life with you, officially and completely. What about your apartment? I'll sell it. Or rent it out. I don't care. You just bought it. I bought it as a backup plan. As a place to land if Seattle didn't work out. But Seattle did work out. You worked out. This worked out. She sat up, straddling his lap, her hands on his face. Say yes. Please say yes. Ethan thought about all the reasons to say no. The practical ones. Money, timing, the fact that they'd only been officially together for a couple months. The fearful ones. What if it didn't work? What if she changed her mind? What if he screwed this up like he'd screwed up everything else? But then he thought about Lily's face when Victoria came home from trips. Thought about Saturday morning pancakes and Friday night game nights and all the small moments that had woven themselves into the fabric of their lives. Yeah, he heard himself say. Yes, let's do it. Victoria's smile could have lit up the entire city. Really? Really. Let's find a house. Let's build a life. Let's do this properly. Properly, she repeated, laughing. I like the sound of that. They started house hunting the next week, dragging Lily to showings every weekend. She had opinions, strong ones, about which houses had the best yards and whether the kitchen was big enough for serious pancake making. The third house they looked at had a backyard with a tire swing and a kitchen with actual counter space and 3 bedrooms that would give them each their own space. It was in a good school district close to Ethan's work, with a garage where Victoria could park the car she barely drove. It's perfect, Victoria said, standing in the empty living room. It's over budget, Ethan countered. By how much? Does it matter? We agreed on a number. We agreed on a range. This is at the top of the range, which means we'd be stretching financially. I can cover the difference. No. Ethan's voice came out sharper than intended. We split it evenly, or we keep looking. Victoria's expression shuddered. Fine. We'll keep looking. They looked at 6 more houses over the next 3 weeks. All of them were fine, decent yards, okay kitchens, acceptable school districts. None of them felt right. We should just get the first one, Ethan said, frustrated. The one with the tire swing. I thought it was over budget. It is, but Lily loved it, and you loved it, and I'm being stubborn about the money thing again. You're being practical. I'm being proud. There's a difference. He sat down at Victoria's kitchen table, ran his hands through his hair. I hate that I can't afford the things I want to give you and Lily. We don't need you to afford them. We need you to be part of them. That's not how it feels. Victoria sat down across from him, reached for his hands. Then let's make a new rule. For the house, we split it proportionally. You pay what you can comfortably afford, I cover the rest. It's still ours, still shared, just divided fairly based on our incomes. That's not even. Even and fair aren't always the same thing. I make more money, Ethan. That's not a judgment on you or your worth. It's just a fact. And I'd rather use that money to build a life with you than have it sit in an account making me feel rich and lonely. He wanted to argue, wanted to insist on splitting everything 50-50, even if it meant getting a house they didn't love. But looking at Victoria's face, at the hope and frustration and love there, he realized this was her way of contributing, of showing up, of building the life she wanted with the resources she had. Okay, he said, proportional split, but I pay all the utilities and groceries. Half the utilities. All the utilities. You're impossible. You love me anyway. I really do. They put an offer on the house with the tire swing. It was accepted within 3 days, and suddenly everything was real and terrifying and moving too fast. Lily was thrilled. She picked out paint colors for her new room, purple with silver stars, and made lists of all the things they'd need for the new house. Victoria coordinated movers and contractors and all the logistics that came with combining two households into one. Ethan tried to be useful and mostly just stayed out of the way. You're quiet, Victoria observed one night, a week before moving day. Just thinking. About? How fast this is happening. 6 months ago, you walked into my apartment by accident. Now, we're buying a house together. Having second thoughts? No, just, it's a lot. It is. But good lot or bad lot? Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Good lot. Definitely good lot. Just taking some getting used to. We'll get used to it together. Moving day was chaos. Boxes everywhere, Lily underfoot asking 1,000 questions. Movers who somehow managed to bang every piece of furniture against every door frame. Victoria's expensive things next to Ethan's secondhand furniture, creating a weird visual clash that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. By evening, they were exhausted, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, eating takeout pizza on the floor because they couldn't find the dining table yet. This is a disaster, Ethan said, looking around. This is home, Victoria corrected. Lily was already asleep in her new purple room, exhausted from the excitement. The tire swing hung dark against the twilight sky. Somewhere in one of these boxes was everything they owned, waiting to be sorted and organized and turned into a life. Home, Ethan repeated, testing out the word. Yeah, home with you and Lily, and whatever comes next. What do you think comes next? Victoria leaned against his shoulder, her hand finding his. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. They sat there in their new living room in their new house, with their new life stretched out before them like an unwritten story. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan wasn't afraid of what the next chapter might bring. 3 months into living in the house with the tire swing, Ethan woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of Victoria pacing in the hallway. He found her outside Lily's room, still in her pajamas, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and tense. I understand the timeline, Richard, but I need you to understand that I can't just drop everything and relocate to Frankfurt for 8 months. We've been through this. A pause. No, it's not negotiable. Find another solution. She hung up, saw Ethan standing there, and her face crumpled. They want me in Germany, she said. The European division is hemorrhaging money, and the board thinks I'm the only one who can fix it. 8 months minimum, possibly longer. Ethan felt like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. What did you tell them? I said no, obviously. She wrapped her arms around herself. But Richard says if I don't go, they'll consider it a breach of my responsibilities as CEO. There's talk of a vote of no confidence. They'd fire you? They'd try. I own enough shares that it would be complicated, but yes, they could force me out. So go. Victoria's head snapped up. What? Go to Frankfurt. Fix the division. Save your company. Ethan, we just bought a house. Lily just started at a new school. We're building a life here. And that life will still be here when you get back. Will it? Will you? Her voice broke. Because I've done this before. I've chosen work over everything else, and I lost you. I'm not doing that again. He crossed the hallway, pulled her into his arms. You're not losing me. But Victoria, This is your company, the thing you built from nothing. I'm not going to be the reason you watch it fall apart. You're not the reason. They are, with their impossible demands and they're asking you to do your job. My job is supposed to be here now, with you and Lily. Your job is CEO. Everything else, us, this house, this life, that's not your job. That's your choice. And you can choose both. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes red and exhausted. How? How do I choose both when they're asking me to be in Germany for 8 months? We figure it out, like we figured out everything else. Ethan, 8 months is different from 2 weeks. Lily can't just video call her way through that. Neither can you. So we don't. The idea was forming as he spoke, reckless and terrifying and somehow right. We come with you. Victoria stared at him. What? We come with you. To Frankfurt. All 3 of us. You can't be serious. Why not? Lily's 7. She can go to school anywhere. I can find construction work anywhere, or take a break, or, I don't know, figure something out. The point is, we don't have to be apart. You'd leave Seattle, leave your job, your life, everything you've built here? For 8 months? Yeah, I would. But the house, we'll rent it out or leave it empty. It'll be here when we get back. Your job, Mike will understand, and if he doesn't, I'll find another job when we come back. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. Victoria, you chose us over London. You restructured your entire life to be here. Let me do this for you. Let me choose you back. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You'd really do that? Uproot everything? In a heartbeat. What about Lily? We ask her. Together. They woke Lily up at 2:30 in the morning, which she was not happy about until she saw both their faces and realized something big was happening. Are we in trouble? She asked, clutching Mr. Hopsworth. No, Bug, Ethan said, sitting on the edge of her bed. We need to talk to you about something important. They explained it as simply as they could. Victoria's company needed her in Germany for a while, and they were thinking about going as a family instead of staying apart. How long is a while? Lily asked. 8 months, Victoria said. Maybe a little longer. That's almost a whole school year. It is, which means you'd go to a different school in Germany for a little while, then come back here for 2nd grade. Lily processed this, her face serious. Would I have to learn German? Probably some, but the international school teaches in English too. Would we all live together there? Yes, all 3 of us. What about my friends? You'd make new friends in Germany, and you could video call Emma and your friends here. What about the tire swing? The tire swing will be here when we get back, Ethan promised. Lily looked between them, and Ethan could see her working through it, the pros and cons, the excitement and fear. She was so much like him, sometimes it hurt. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, Victoria said. This is a big decision. We all need to think about it. But Lily shook her head. No, I mean, can I think about it right now, while you're here? They waited while she sat there in her purple room with her silver stars, hugging Mr. Hopsworth, her face scrunched up in concentration. Okay, she said finally. I want to go. You're sure? Ethan asked. I'm sure, because if we stay here and Victoria goes by herself, we'll all be sad. And if we go together, we'll be together sad instead of apart sad. Which is better? Together sad, Victoria repeated, something between a laugh and a sob in her voice. Yeah, plus I've never been to Germany. That's kind of cool. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, overwhelmed by her resilience, her willingness to embrace change because it meant keeping their family intact. You're the bravest kid I know. I know, Lily said matter-of-factly. Can I go back to sleep now? The next 6 weeks were a blur of logistics and planning. Mike was disappointed but understanding when Ethan gave notice. The house was listed for short-term rent and snapped up by a couple relocating from California. Lily's school processed her withdrawal with promises to hold her spot for her return. Victoria's board was thrilled, though Richard made a point of telling her this was a return to her priorities. Ethan had to physically restrain Victoria from punching him through the phone. My priorities are fine, she'd seethed after hanging up. My priorities are keeping my company afloat and keeping my family together. He's an ass, Ethan agreed. A pompous, condescending ass who's been trying to undermine me since I turned down London. So go to Frankfurt and prove him wrong. Oh, I will. I'm going to fix that division so well he chokes on his own smugness. Ethan grinned. That's my girl. They told people they were taking a family adventure, which got mixed reactions. Sarah Chen thought it was wonderful. Emma's mom asked if they were running from something. Ethan's brother called to ask if he'd lost his mind. You're following your girlfriend to Germany? Dan said. What happened to family first? She is my family, Ethan said quietly. She and Lily. That's my family now. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, well, good for you, I guess. It wasn't a blessing, but it was close enough. Packing up their lives was harder than Ethan expected. Not the physical part. Victoria hired movers for that. But the emotional part. Deciding what to take, what to store, what parts of their Seattle life would fit into their Frankfurt one. Lily wanted to bring everything. Victoria wanted to bring nothing, convinced they could buy whatever they needed there. Ethan ended up being the mediator, the voice of reason, the one who reminded them both that this was temporary. We're coming back, he said for the 100th time. This isn't forever. But standing in their half-empty house the night before they left, looking at the tire swing swaying gently in the backyard, Ethan felt the weight of what they were doing. They were leaving. Together, yes, but still leaving. And there was no guarantee what they'd come back to. Having second thoughts? Victoria asked, coming up beside him. No, just first thoughts that won't shut up. What are they saying? That this is crazy. That we're uprooting our entire lives for your job. That I'm supposed to be the stable one, the one who keeps everything grounded. And instead I'm being brave, Victoria interrupted. You're being brave. And showing Lily that sometimes love means taking risks. Well, what if it doesn't work? What if we get there and it's a disaster? Then we come home early. We're not prisoners, Ethan. If Frankfurt doesn't work, we leave. Just like that? Just like that. She took his hand. But I think it will work. I think we're going to figure it out like we always do, messily, imperfectly, but together. The flight to Frankfurt was 14 hours of Lily asking questions, Victoria working on her laptop, and Ethan trying not to think about everything they'd left behind. They landed on a gray Tuesday morning, jet-lagged and disoriented, and were met by a driver who took them to a furnished apartment in the city center. It was nice. Nicer than their house, actually, with modern furniture and huge windows and a view of the main river. It was also completely sterile without any of the warmth or character of home. It's temporary, Victoria reminded them, just until we figure out what we want longer term. Lily explored every room, declaring the bathroom fancy and her bedroom too clean. Ethan stood in the living room and tried to imagine 8 months here, tried to convince himself he'd made the right decision. The first month was brutal. Lily struggled with the new school, coming home in tears more than once because she didn't understand the other kids, or they didn't understand her. Ethan couldn't find work. His German was non-existent, his credentials didn't transfer, and most construction sites weren't interested in hiring someone who'd be gone in a few months. Victoria worked 18-hour days, leaving before Lily woke up and coming home after she'd gone to bed. The European division was worse than she'd expected, plagued by mismanagement and structural issues that couldn't be fixed overnight. I'm failing at this, Victoria said one night, her voice hollow. At all of it. The company's still bleeding money, Lily's miserable, you're stuck at home doing nothing, and I'm never here to help with any of it. You're not failing, Ethan said, even though he'd had the same thought more than once. What would you call it then? Adjusting. We're all adjusting. How long does adjusting take? Because I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so tired of trying to hold everything together and feeling like it's all falling apart anyway. He pulled her close, and she collapsed against him, and Ethan realized they'd made a terrible mistake. They'd thought coming together would be enough, that proximity would solve everything, but they hadn't accounted for the reality. The cultural barriers, the language struggles, the loneliness of being in a place where nothing felt familiar. Maybe we should go home, he said. Victoria pulled back. What? You said if it didn't work, we could leave. It's not working, Victoria. Lily's unhappy, you're drowning, I'm useless here. Maybe we should just admit this was a bad idea and go back to Seattle. And what about the company? Send someone else. Promote internally. Do whatever you have to do, but don't sacrifice our family for a division that might be unsavable anyway. I can't just walk away. Why not? You've been carrying this company on your back for years. Maybe it's time to let someone else share the weight. She stared at him, and he could see her wrestling with it. The part of her that had always equated her worth with her work, that couldn't imagine stepping back, that had spent a decade building something she was terrified to trust to anyone else. I don't know how, she admitted. To not be the one fixing everything. Then learn. We'll figure it out together. It was Lily who tipped the scales. She came home from school 3 days later with a drawing, stick figures of the three of them standing in front of a building. Above it, in careful letters, "My family in Germany." "I made a friend," she announced. "Her name is Sophia, and she speaks English and German, and she says I can come to her house this weekend." "That's great, Bug," Ethan said, trying to muster enthusiasm. "And Frau Weber says I'm getting better at German. I can say good morning and thank you, and where's the bathroom?" "Essential skills," Victoria said. "I know, right?" Lily beamed at them. "I was sad at first, but now it's kind of fun, like an adventure." After she went to bed, Ethan and Victoria looked at each other. "She's adapting," Victoria said. "Better than we are." Kids are resilient. So are adults, apparently. They made a decision that night. They'd stay, but with changes. Victoria would delegate more, train her team to handle problems without her, work toward making herself less essential to daily operations. Ethan would take language classes, explore the city, maybe pick up some freelance work that didn't require perfect German. And they'd commit to family time, real time, not just exhausted hours squeezed between obligations. It got better slowly. Victoria brought in a VP to handle day-to-day operations, which freed her up to focus on strategic fixes rather than constant firefighting. Ethan's German improved enough to have basic conversations, and he started doing odd jobs for their building, maintenance work that didn't require language fluency but made him feel useful. Lily thrived. She became fluent faster than either of them, making friends, bringing home German words that she'd teach them over dinner. She loved the Christmas markets, the castles on day trips, the adventure of it all. "I'm glad we came," she said one night. "Yeah?" Ethan asked. "Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but it's good hard. Like when you lift something heavy and your muscles hurt, but you know you're getting stronger." Ethan looked at Victoria, and she looked back, and they both smiled because their 7-year-old had just articulated what they'd been trying to figure out for months. This was good hard, the kind of hard that built something instead of breaking it. 6 months in, Victoria made an announcement that shocked everyone, including Ethan. "I'm stepping down as CEO," she said over dinner. Ethan's fork clattered to his plate. "What?" "Not completely. I'll stay on as chairman of the board, keep major decision-making power. But I'm promoting Christoph to CEO. He's been doing most of the heavy lifting anyway, and he's good at it. Better than me at the operational stuff, if I'm honest." "Victoria, that's your company." "It is, and it'll still be mine. I'm not giving it up, just sharing the responsibility. I've been the single point of failure for too long. This way, the company gets stronger leadership, and I get my life back." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She reached across the table, took his hand. "I started that company because I wanted to prove I could. I wanted success and power and all the things I thought mattered. And I got them. And they did matter, but they weren't enough. Us, Lily, the life we're building, this is what I actually want. And I can't have both at full capacity. So I'm choosing the one that makes me happy instead of the one that makes me impressive." Lily had been listening quietly. "Does this mean we can go home?" Victoria laughed. "Soon, sweetheart. I need to finish the transition here, make sure Christoph has everything he needs. But yeah, we can start planning to go home." They stayed in Frankfurt for 2 more months, tying up loose ends, making sure the European division was stable. Victoria worked with Christoph daily, transferring knowledge, building trust, learning how to let go of control in a way that felt healthy instead of terrifying. Ethan watched her transform. She worked less but accomplished more, smiled more, slept better, stopped checking her phone compulsively during dinner. "You seem different," he observed one night. "I am different. I'm not carrying everything alone anymore. How does it feel? Lighter, scary, but lighter. On their last night in Frankfurt, they took Lily to her favorite restaurant, a little place near their apartment that served spätzle and schnitzel and made Lily feel like a local. She chattered in German to the waitress, ordered for all three of them, and Ethan felt a swell of pride watching his daughter navigate a world that had terrified her 8 months ago. I'm going to miss this, Lily said. The food or the city? Victoria asked. Both, but mostly Sophia. She said we can write letters. Old school, Ethan said. I like it. Can we come back someday to visit? Of course, Victoria promised. Germany's part of our story now. The flight home felt different than the flight there. Less anxious, more certain. They'd left Seattle unsure if they were making the right choice. They were returning knowing they had. Mike picked them up from the airport, bear-hugging Ethan hard enough to crack ribs. You're back. You're really back. We're really back. I saved your job, you know. Had to fight with corporate, but I told them you were too good to lose. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. Good guys are hard to find. Mike turned to Victoria. You must be the famous Victoria, Mike Donnelly. I've heard a lot about you. All good, I hope, Victoria said, shaking his hand. Mostly. Ethan gets pretty mushy when he talks about you. I do not, Ethan protested. You absolutely do. It's disgusting. They drove to the house with the tire swing, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest when it came into view. The renters had kept it nice. Lawn mowed, paint still fresh, everything exactly as they'd left it, but somehow better because now they knew what it meant to leave and choose to come back. Lily ran straight to the backyard, to the tire swing, and Ethan and Victoria stood on the porch watching her. We did it, Victoria said. We did. We left everything, went to Germany, fixed a company, raised a kid in a foreign country, and came back stronger. When you put it like that, we sound pretty badass. She laughed, leaned into him. We are pretty badass. I love you, he said. I know I say it a lot, but I need you to know I mean it every time. I know, I love you too. They stood there watching Lily swing higher and higher, her laughter carrying across the yard, and Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first morning when Victoria had walked into his apartment by accident to this moment, standing in their shared home, watching their daughter play. It hadn't been smooth. It hadn't been easy. There had been fights and fears and moments when he'd been certain they were making a terrible mistake. But they'd kept showing up for each other, for Lily, for the life they were building together. That night, after Lily was asleep in her purple room with her silver stars, Ethan found Victoria in the kitchen. I have something for you, he said. Okay. She looked curious but not suspicious. He pulled out a small velvet box and her eyes went wide. Ethan, wait. Let me say this. He took a breath. 10 years ago, I let you go because I was scared and stupid and convinced that love wasn't enough. I spent a decade regretting it, building a life that was good but not great, settling for okay because I didn't think I deserved amazing. Ethan, I'm not done. Then you walked into my apartment by accident and everything changed. You reminded me what it felt like to want something more, to believe I could have something more. And you've spent the last year proving that love isn't about perfection or ease or having all the answers. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, nothing flashy, just a single diamond on a silver band, the kind of ring that was beautiful because of what it represented, rather than what it cost. I'm not asking you to marry me because it's the next logical step, or because it's what people expect. I'm asking because I want to spend the rest of my life being brave enough to choose you, every single day. In the easy moments and the hard ones, in Seattle and Frankfurt and wherever else life takes us. Tears were streaming down Victoria's face. Yes. I wasn't done talking. I don't care. Yes. Absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and she kissed him, and somewhere in the house Lily shrieked with joy because of course she'd been listening from the stairs. She came running, throwing herself at both of them. Are you getting married? Are you really getting married? We're really getting married, Victoria confirmed. Can I be in the wedding? You're going to be the most important person in the wedding, Ethan said. More important than you? Way more important than me. Lily beamed and they stood there in the kitchen, the three of them together, a family, not because it was easy, but because they'd chosen each other again and again in all the ways that mattered. They got married 6 months later in the backyard with the tire swing. Nothing fancy, just close friends, family who actually showed up, and Lily as the flower girl wearing a purple dress that matched her bedroom walls. Mrs. Chen officiated, which felt right since she'd been there from the beginning. Mike was Ethan's best man and made a speech about how Ethan had been a complete disaster until Victoria came along. Victoria's parents flew in from Boston, her mother crying through the entire ceremony, her father gripping Ethan's hand afterward and saying simply, "Take care of my girl." "Always," Ethan promised. Maya's parents came too, which Ethan hadn't expected. Maya's mother hugged Victoria tightly and whispered something that made Victoria cry. Later, she told him what it was. "Thank you for loving them both." Lily stood between Ethan and Victoria during the vows, holding both their hands, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, she loudly announced, "No, we're a family now. It's official." Everyone laughed, and Ethan looked at Victoria, his wife, his partner, the woman who'd been brave enough to come back, to try again, to build something messy and beautiful and entirely their own, and felt a peace he'd never quite experienced before. This was what he'd been searching for. Not perfection, not ease, just this. Two imperfect people choosing each other, choosing to be brave, choosing love even when it was scary. The reception was in the backyard, string lights and folding tables and a playlist that Lily had helped create. They danced, ate cake, listened to speeches that were funny and touching and occasionally embarrassing. And when it was over, when the guests had left and Lily was asleep inside, Ethan and Victoria sat on the tire swing together, swaying gently in the evening air. "We did it," Victoria said. "We did. We really did it. The impossible thing. The scary thing. It turns out it wasn't impossible after all." She rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad you didn't let me leave that second time. I'm glad you came back the first time. I'll always come back. You know that, right? Wherever work takes me, whatever happens, I'll always come back to this. To you. To us. I know, and I'll always be here, choosing you back." They sat there as the night deepened, as stars appeared above them, as the house filled with the gentle sounds of their life together. Inside, Lily slept peacefully, safe and loved. Around them, the life they'd built from second chances and hard choices and the kind of courage it took to believe in something fragile. Years later, when people asked how they made it work, the CEO and the construction worker, the woman who traveled the world and the man who'd been too scared to leave Seattle, Ethan would tell them the truth. They'd made it work by showing up, by choosing each other when it would have been easier to walk away, by being brave enough to be scared together instead of safe apart. They'd made it work by understanding that love wasn't about finding someone perfect or easy or convenient. It was about finding someone worth the effort, worth the risk, worth building a life around even when that life got messy and complicated and hard. They'd made it work because they'd both learned, finally, that second chances don't come to rewrite the past. They come to prove you're finally ready for the future. And standing in his backyard on a Saturday morning, watching Victoria teach Lily how to make pancakes, still terrible at it after all these years, still getting flour everywhere, still burning at least one batch, Ethan knew he'd been ready for a long time. He just needed Victoria to walk through the wrong door at exactly the right moment to realize it. The pancakes were perfect, even when they were burnt. The life was perfect, even when it was hard. The love was perfect, even when they weren't. Because perfect isn't about flawless. It's about finding the person who makes your imperfections feel like home. And Ethan Cole had finally found his way home.